Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adwukta.
This is Merps, and we got a doozy of a Lightforge for you guys today. What was our previous record for longest Lightforge? Because I
I
actually
think
don't
it
know.
was like 3 hours. One of the times when when MSG was coming out, or like close to 3 hours. It was like 2.5.
Was it? I don't know,
Because we were
man.
reviewing
But
all the cards. That was the data dump.
oh, true, true. But strap yourselves in, guys. It's gonna be a long one today.
Because Blizzard did something last week. They announced something and it's going to happen next week, probably tomorrow actually, which is Monday. So probably when you're hearing this, it's already Monday, and maybe Tuesday. But either way, they said end of month. Patch 7.1 is coming out, and Arena is going to be completely different.
Yeah, it's going to be completely different. Everything is changing. First, though, I think we should make a point of clarification. Last week, we did announce that Victor would be on for this week. Things have changed. We're rescheduling Victor for 2 weeks from now. Big apologies to everyone who was excited about that and to Victor.
Yeah.
But we will have him on. We are very excited to talk.
He's now known like officially as 12 wins. He changed his Twitch account now that Twitch allows you to change names, so it's just 12 wins. Nice and
Yes.
easy to remember. But yeah, we really appreciate him making the space because it's going to take us a long time to talk about all these changes. And you'll get him on in 2 weeks when the February leaderboard is out as well. So he'll have even more to talk about. And as well as it'll be like the first in-depth look at the new meta that we give. After the metas come out. So it'll be really exciting. But until then, I want to get out our thoughts on the coming meta before it actually comes out, so that when you get into the meta, whether it is Monday night or if it's Tuesday, whenever the patch comes out, you'll have an idea of how to draft and how to play in this meta, and you'll be at an advantage compared to all the random arena players that pop in hearing about the change. So let's just go over the changes one by one, and we'll talk about it. We'll go over it, and we're not putting ourselves at any kind of time limit, so this will go probably at least 2 hours. That's what happens when we don't limit ourselves. Okay, golden cards in the arena. First off, that is the news. That is the biggest news. It is something we've been waiting for literally a year, more than a year. It's like a year and a half now since Ben Brode first said that we were going to get golden cards in the arena at some point in the future, and we have finally arrived at that some point in the future. Like, it was
Okay.
literally September 2015.
Right. Okay, and we're just making the going through everything. So I shouldn't rant for an hour about how I love this yet.
No,
right?
no, no, go for it, go. Let's
Oh
hear the
my
1 hour
gosh.
rant about golden cards. I mean, this is the most exciting change, really. Like, there's all this strategy
Well, I
stuff,
mean, for me,
cards
it definitely
coming,
is.
but like for veteran players who are going in and they already
Yeah.
have all these cards, especially veteran arena players who like don't have anything to do with their dust. This is huge.
Yeah. So this is fantastic. Although here is exactly how they're implementing golden cards. They just say if you have a golden copy in your constructed, like if you
Collection.
actually own a golden card, then the first copy is golden. If you own two copies of the card that is gold, then your second copy and your third and fourth and whatever in the arena will also be gold. And as for legendaries, you only have to own one golden copy, and then if you are lucky enough to get like 3 Dr. Booms in the arena, as long as you have one golden Dr. Boom, they'll all be golden. So the solution ended up being very simple, right? We talked about other ways in which, like, oh, if you get 12 wins,
It
then
was always going to be that simple. We knew it. We
I,
knew they
I
weren't
think
going to
so.
go fancy with it.
No. So I'm very happy, but at the same time, it's like really,
It's
it's
fine.
like at the end of the day, like this is it. No, but I'm very happy with it. Great change, and like better late than never, right? So
Dr. Stein in the
very, very
chat
happy.
says he's our mod and also like number 3 in UU in January leaderboards. He just said, I wish they had an option to turn that off. They are adding an option to turn that off. Ben Brode confirmed that earlier today on Reddit. That they will at some point in the future, so like a year and a half from now, add an option that'll allow you to turn it off. After you draft the deck too. Like you can turn off all the golden cards.
I don't think this was confirmed yet, though, right? So
No.
what happens if you have one gold version of a card,
Yeah.
and then you draft like 3 copies, right?
Uh-huh.
People were asking, does this and if you can't turn off at the beginning, is this disadvantageous for you to have actually just one golden
Yes.
copy of a
Oh,
card?
of course. Of
Right.
course it's disadvantageous.
because you could potentially be giving out information,
Yeah, oh,
right?
of course. Well, especially when you have stuff like thought steals and things like that that like actually peek into your hand. Like the fact that you have a golden version of a card or not, or like to look at your deck, right? You can pull stuff out of your opponent's deck. It really does affect it affects things, but just like very small on the margins, very tiny percent of
It's
times.
on the margins. Yeah, examples people gave were something like, you have a joust on turn two, yeah, let's say you have like a
Yeah.
joust on turn one, Gadgetzan Jouster.
Yep.
You see that they have a golden
Yep.
Yeti or something. I
Yep.
mean, Yeti is something that
So
makes
really,
the
what it
most
means is if you end up with
fun.
one golden card, you should just craft the other one. What are you using your dust for anyway?
You're
Uh,
assuming people like you're there sitting with like your tens of thousands of dust, and you're just like, oh yeah, just craft it. Don't worry about it. It's like not everyone has the luxury of that, man.
okay, but like if you want the advantage in the arena, Ben Brode is saying that you really need to either wait 1.5 years or you need to craft those golden cards. So that's where we're at now. Your dust is now being held hostage in the arena for that 0.01% advantage. Really, it doesn't matter. You're not going to win or lose a game because of that. Like maybe once in your lifetime you will, but that's it. Okay, so moving on from the golden card hype, the actual rundown of the arena. First, arena is moving to standard. Obviously, that we knew that was happening for a while, and it is going to happen, which means Nax and GVG are going to be removed. What's the card you're going to miss the most from Nax and GVG?
Not gonna miss a lot of those cards because a lot of those are really annoying cards that are a little bit too OP. Um, but I think one of the okay, even though how powerful it is, I might miss Haunted Creeper. It's so unique, right? It's not just Zombie Chow that's like fat and overstated, right?
Mm,
Like Haunted Creeper is one of those cards in which, it's good for every class, but it sets up certain strategies, right? It's like when you pop it, if you do or don't pop it, and like whether or not your opponent pops it gives you information about what their plan is as well. Like
yep.
it's a very, it not only is a great card, but it also sets up, it
It
requires,
interacts with your mind.
yes, it interacts with your mind. Okay, great. But according to you, like every single card interacts with your mind.
That's what makes this game great.
Fantastic.
Okay, yeah. So that's definitely one of the ones up there. I'm going to a card I'm not going to miss is Death's Bite. I wanted that card out of the meta for so long. I think warriors should have more normal weapons, and that like has a really interesting mechanic with the death rattle and all that. But it was always kind of like a weird thing. It was too powerful to ignore, but it created weird things in the warrior, and the warrior's already like a very like iffy situational kind of class to be putting stuff out. So I'm kind of glad that that's going away. But hopefully they'll replace it with with another new really powerful weapon in on curve really powerful weapon, I should specify, in the next expansion. But okay, so we've talked a lot about arena to standard, and this has actually gotten the most attention, I think, from the community at large of Hearthstone. Not necessarily the arena community, but the at large community. They seem to have, I think you see a really clear divide, which is that everybody who is a arena streamer or like someone who mainly plays arena, like most people are like, yeah, arena should be standard, that's fine, we understand there's some negatives to it, but generally we're okay with it. And even we had a whole Lightforge episode before, like I think it was like 4 episodes or 5 episodes back about arena potentially going standard and what that means, and I was objecting to it, but I have no grounds to object to it anymore because I was objecting to it thinking that they're just not going to do anything else. They're just going to move it to the standard and then not touch the arena again. But as you'll see from the other changes that are coming up, they're actually going in and tweaking a lot of stuff. So I have no objections now to moving arena to standard. Of course, arena should be standard. It's fine and it's nice and it's wonderful, and to whatever extent that they ever want to make it not standard again, they can do it. But the general Hearthstone crowd, right? Like if you go on Reddit and you read it, and or if you just talk to people who play like both arena and constructed, or primarily constructed, but they dip their toe in arena now and then, they're like up in arms about it. Like hugely up in arms about arena no longer being wild. Like it's completely destroying a game mode that they collectively barely play.
Yep. So, basically, going on what you said, yeah, you know, we're gonna dissect it in length right now, but I think we've gotten sort of statements and even like videos from other
Yeah.
streamers, right? I
Yeah.
know Hafu came out with her sort of thoughts on her YouTube channel video. You guys can check that out. Shady came out with a video, sort of highlighting, what he thinks as well, and both of them think that this is overall a positive, right? And it's sort of the idea that we've been echoing for quite a long time, and sort of our fear as well. It's like, what do you play around when the card pool is 2,000 cards, 2,500 cards, and then so on and so forth, right? It's already to the point where, yeah, you can make some reads and you can play around some cards like, obviously, Abyssal Enforcer, right? A card that is AoE and also has an offering rate, and by the time turn 7 comes around, you can, make a read on a card that they haven't played since turn 1. But as the cards get more and more and the dilution effect becomes stronger, you actually play around nothing. And you, especially, Adwicto, like, you've always been a fan of just like, you're a very percentage-based player, right? And you're just like, it's like,
I'm a macro player, not a micro player. I don't care about positioning. I mess up order all the time.
Oh yes, definitely. But even
and
now,
I'm still doing really well because I just play macro.
Right. And even now, though, there are some cards in which I think like, no one ever plays around. Something like Blizzard, right? Like that is a card that you never play around. And a lot of times, like, we purposefully just play into stuff because we know that the percentages just don't work out. Like,
I purposely play into everything.
Yeah. Like, Consecration is just like,
that's not a thing.
Okay. Yeah,
like,
that's not a thing.
Maybe if I have 3 things out on the board right now, I will not play my next 3 too because I'm so ahead on the board on turn 4, right? But other than that, generally no.
Yeah, generally no. So what ends up happening is the reasons that people complain about, that they're saying, oh, we like the arena because anything can happen. That is what would eventually kill the arena, because yes, like, you would like some people like going in and being like, oh, anything can happen, this is fun. They'll play it once and then they'll maybe play it again next month, for that one time to get like the thrill of it. But for the people who keep on playing it, it is not just frustrating, it is pointless. And you never want a game format to be pointless.
Yeah. I mean, okay, to be fair, like, as a macro player rather than a micro player, the more cards, the more homogenous everything becomes, the better it is for me. Because at that point, the more and more of the micro elements disappear, and you're just creating, like, am I doing card advantage? Am I doing tempo? What are my reads on my opponent in terms of his card advantage and his tempo? And I don't have to worry about specific cards and things like that. But it does add a different element, and it's an element that you're going to see come back in. Like, if you joined the Hearthstone community, like, after TGT, you have a very different perception of the arena in terms of what you're playing around and how you play than if you did it before TGT. Before TGT, you played around everything. Like, if you watch Arena Coop #1, Arena Coop is the series we keep talking about on here, and because once a week we do a co-op of a different class, and we've done it for like 2 years now, more than 2 years, I think. But anyway, if you look at the very first Arena Coop, it's just us playing around literally everything. Like, it's like, oh, it's turn 3, we're playing against a hunter. What could he have? Deadly Shot? Okay, let's play around that. Could he have a kill command? Oh yeah, let's play around that. Maybe he's just gonna do an Animal Companion. Let's play around the Animal Companion. Like, because it was classic. You knew your opponent's like 6 options, and it's stupid not to play around it. So somewhere between that extreme and where we are right now, where I don't care about anything. Like, some players still care about stuff. I literally don't care about anything unless I already have a huge board, and I don't need to play that extra minion anyway. I just play into stuff. And it is, if not completely correct, then correct enough that I can still average like 8 wins per run with the good classes, right? Which is, like, my average right now for the February leaderboard is like 7.8. I'm trying to get it to 8 before the month ends. But anyway, the point is, I can do very well not playing around anything. And I'm very upfront about it. Like, if you ever watch my stream, I just don't play around stuff. And that's not a good thing, I think, for competition in most areas. Because I don't think, like Merp said, right? Like, I don't know. I think it may get a little boring for people if they're just doing macro considerations. Because a lot of the micro stuff is what people have fun with. Like, the people who are really skilled at this game. And it's not really my thing, but I can respect that. And so yeah, that's what we're getting with Standard.
Right, and also you have to think about the new players, right? right now, if you're a new player coming in and you see the arena and you're just like, oh wow, I have to learn, quite not so many new cards, but if you are an arena player coming in after the later on this year, right? And then you see that you basically need to learn 5 more expansions than what you would need to learn normally
Mm-hmm.
for constructed. You're just like, oh man, that's quite a mountain to climb. And then for the new player coming in a year after that, you have to learn
Yeah.
what is
It's
it?
just not
Like,
feasible. You got to do
no,
something. If it's
definitely
not
not.
changing to standard, it's something else. And I was pushing for the something else until I
Right.
heard about all these other changes that are happening because we're not just moving to standard, we are doing the something else. Blizzard's doing a lot of the something else, and we'll go over that like one by one afterwards. If you're watching this and you purely want to hear us for like how the meta will shift, you should probably skip ahead a bunch because we're going to start going down some like very like staty kind of things and whether we like a change or not, like game designy kind of stuff, before we go on to the actual analysis of what the meta is going to be like. I probably should have prefaced this like way earlier on. But yeah, but like I would skip the next like 10-20 minutes if you don't care about game design elements and you just care about what the meta is going to be like when you step into it. Okay, so that's standard. I think we talked about standard enough because we spent a whole entire podcast talking about it already.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you guys know
definitely.
our thoughts to it. I just wanted to, to know that hey, the way that Blizzard did it, I'm cool with standard. I just didn't want them to like kind of rest on standard and be like, oh, standard is the cure for everything. It isn't, and they know that because they're doing other stuff. So we're going to go over the changes one by one. I'm going to outline them all to you right now, and then we'll hit them one by one before we jump to the meta. So first, more spells plus 20%. Next, fewer common neutral minions. We don't know what percentage it is yet, but there's an additional penalty on common neutral minions. Next, Flamestrike and Abyssal Enforcer are halved in terms of their offering rates. Like after all the other changes are made, their offering rates get halved. And then rarity is going to be changed. We'll go into more specifics about it, but basically, you're going to see common cards a little less. Rare cards are going to be seen the same amount as common cards. So, like, there will be as many Blizzards offered to you as Flame Strikes. It's a huge change. And epics are going to be part of the meta now. Like, epics are going to be seen about half as much, a little more than half as much as often as you see your commons and rares. So they're like the new rares, is the way I want to think about it. And then legendaries are also increased by a lot, but you're going to see about like one per draft on average, I want to say, rather than
Yeah.
right now we see one every 3 drafts. So, but like each particular legendary, you're like still rarely going to see because there's so many legendaries. But you will like on average get one legendary per deck, which means that there will be many decks where you have 3 legendaries now. Like that's just going to happen. The odds of you getting 3 legendaries now is not like astronomical anymore. Okay, so those are the changes. Let's go over them one by one. First, let's talk about the spells. Blizzard decided that there needs to be more spells in the arena, and I don't know, have they confirmed if it also applies to weapons? I just kind of assume they do, but I haven't actually seen a confirmation anywhere.
I haven't seen a confirmation. And without it, I don't know what to think about it, right? Um, it would make sense that it should, because weapons are basically spells.
Yeah.
They're just it's the same thing, right? It's initiative and it just allows you to do something right away. It's a spell that persists, right? And some spells also just persist anyway. So
Yep.
it would make sense that they would give increased offering rate to weapons. Otherwise, like it's pretty imbalanced because then it really sort of screws over some classes like
Yeah,
warriors, right?
warrior, and that's the class
Yeah.
they don't want to screw over. It's
No.
already the worst class. They're about to make it worse, as I'll point out why later. And it's just going to like that's not what they want to do. But okay, more fundamentally, I think I disagree with the idea that spells are special. Like
Yeah.
spells are just class cards. That's all they are. And I don't see any reason, and I don't see why anybody would even think about this. Like, it seems like a direction you go if you don't fully understand how the arena works. You're like, oh, we need more removals, let's have more spells. But, like, why is Animal Companion going to be offered more than Kindly Grandmother? What's the reason behind that? Like,
Yeah.
spells are just a thing in the game, like all the other things. They're not what makes the classes unique. That's kind of their fallback things. Like, oh, that's what differentiates the classes. No, the class cards are what differentiates the classes. Like, I'm actually really surprised that the game designers could not pinpoint that the class cards are what, and the hero power make the classes special, not just the spells. And to make that additional 20%, it's like it's not a very elegant solution on top of that.
No.
If you just made all the class cards increase, that's a pretty elegant solution. Class cards are already offered twice as much as regular neutral cards. There's already a precedent, already a normal kind of thing, an expectation that you just see class cards more. Now you're adding like one additional wrench into your like way of figuring this out, and you're saying if it's a spell, it gets another 20%, which is not even that much, by the way, additional bonus. Like, is that necessary? What if you just made all the class cards more? Are we really that annoyed by seeing that many, like, I don't know, like, kindly grandmothers in the meta? Like, do we care that we see more of those in the meta? Like, no, and I kind of want to. What about minion-based classes? What if you, like, you are a class and you really need your minions because they define your class? Let's say you are a, I don't know, druid with Ironbark, for example, or druid of the Claw, or druid anything, right? Like, there are classes that are as defined by their minions as by their spells. And we were talking about spells acting as minions. Some minions act as spells.
Right.
Like Dark Iron Skulker. That's a spell with a body attached to it. So to not give that an offering bonus, I think is great because I hate Dark Iron Skulker. But, like, it just doesn't make sense when you're giving your consecrations the bonus.
Right. So one thing I want to make clear, because a lot of this podcast will be about us breaking everything down and obviously sort of, sharing our critique and criticism. I do want to sort of start off by saying that changes are always going to be good, right? Like, them taking sort of leaps and, just focusing on the arena.
I think you got to pull back that statement.
Well, no. So I appreciate the effort, and they have said that these changes.
Okay, so changes are not always good. Let's start there.
No. Sorry. Effort to make changes always.
There we go.
Effort. To make changes.
That's very different than the changes.
I do appreciate that.
Yes.
That they're doing this, and importantly, we should put this out there. They have said that these changes are not necessarily permanent.
Yes.
Any of these changes,
right.
Like
it's the
they
first
say,
time they're doing something like this. They're just figuring stuff out.
Right. So with that being said, and before we go on this long critique, and then just sort of like critique this, critique that, I do want to say the effort and the sort of focus on the arena from, and not just this, it's like everything that they've done since the new year, I think should be commended. Right, because they have done a lot of stuff. Whether or not you agree with the change or not,
okay,
they
fine.
are actually
give Blizzard a participation award. They get a participation award. Whether these changes are good or not, though, is very important because if they're not good, Blizzard needs to recognize that and change it back or change it to something new. I don't want them to sit on this for like 6 months,
podcast,
right?
And that's what we're going to.
But what I'm saying is, I don't want them to sit on this for like 2 months is fine. I don't want them to sit on it for like 6 months and be like, well, let's see how the changes go, like let's see how people like it. Like, some of these changes just don't make sense. And this is what we're saying. Like, if you are someone who has never done something before and is not necessarily like the most well-versed people on doing something like this, and you go ahead and you do something and try to make it better, you're going to break it. It's going to be like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's how it's always going to be. That's not Blizzard's fault. Like, yeah, sure, they could do it better. But, like, it's just not realistic to expect them to do better on the first try, right? So what's really important is that they're really in tune with what's working and what's not working, and that they change to make things better. And what's also always going to be true is that this first iteration of the arena is going to be awful. And I'm going to stress this. This is going to be a prevailing theme. And we haven't touched upon it yet because we're just happy changes are coming. But the arena that's coming up, this meta that's hitting on Monday/Tuesday, will be awful. Absolutely awful.
Agreed.
It will just be bad. Because Blizzard messed up, and Blizzard doesn't know what they're doing. But, like Merv said, we're happy they're trying to do something. Like, And that doesn't matter what they do. Like, almost any change that they make in this kind of scale, we would be happy that they're trying to do something, even if it totally destroyed the arena. I just want them to, like, fix it in, like, 2 months when the next expansion comes out. Like, I've already written off the next 2 months in the arena. It's going to be like interesting to poke around. It's going to be good for like thinking and like learning the game, like game elements that you might not have learned if they didn't screw up the whole meta. But this is not how the meta should be staying. And if this meta persists for more than 2 months, it's awful. It's going to be like it's just Blizzard not being responsive at that point. Or I'm totally wrong and the meta's actually fine, right? Like,
the, quote, next meta we're talking about is because these changes are dropping soon, it's the meta,
the 2 month meta.
Right after these changes drop and before we have our next rotation. Basically when the next expansion hits, we're gonna have 3 expansions cycle out, right? So this is like the in-between meta that Advent is talking about.
Yep. It's this next 2 like months before the next expansion comes out. Next expansion comes out, lots of expansions leave, like whole like new different things are happening. But we'll go into what's wrong with this meta, and it's just what I think is wrong with this meta. Maybe it'll happen, and either I'm wrong in my predictions, or everyone will actually like it, even though I hate it, and then fine, whatever. But I think it'll really be like awful starting in 2 days or 1 day or whatever. Okay, so the first thing that that I really wanted to talk about was the spells thing. Spells make no sense to be different than other class cards. Like, I don't even know where this thought came from, or rather, no, I know where the thought came from. People have been asking for it for a while, but I don't know how it got past the game developers, who should know very well that minions define a class as much as spells, and that, especially in this game, oftentimes the lines are super blurred.
Right, and like you said before, charge minions are spells, right? Charge minions are spells. A lot of
any minion where the ability is more important than the body is more of a spell than the minion.
Right. Any and even a lot of neutral cards, like what is a Gnomish Gnomish Inventor, right? Even Gnomish Experimenter. But these cards that even have like just very useful text on them, like Gnomish Inventor could just be a spell. It's like 4 mana, draw a card, and create a 2/4 body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very simple.
Yep.
Like it. So it really is blurry. Like, and why you designate something as, because like too many.
It's just
cards
to buff
in this game
mages because they have explicit spell synergies. That's why.
Yeah.
It's because Blizzard saw mage and they're like, oh, are they not #1 anymore? We can't let that happen. No. Okay. So anyway, that just doesn't make any sense. Like that's a bad change. I don't really care if you give class cards an extra 20% or not, but you should not give spells more than minions. Like,
right.
Okay. Now after that, let's move on to the even worse change. This is like, oh god, we're just going in order of like badness of change. The spell one I don't care too much about. It's only 20%, doesn't make that big of a difference. It's just a weird thing they did. The next one is there's going to be even fewer common neutral minions than there is after the rarity change. What that means, and I don't know what the percentage is because no one ever confirmed it to us, but I think it's more than 20%. Just like judging, like trying to read between the lines. I think it's going to be something like 40 or 50% less common neutral minions. So what that means is on top of like the already reduced, and it's just common neutral minions. It's not even like all neutral minions. It's not saying like we don't like neutral cards. We're going to like, have less of them. It's just the common ones. And what are the common neutral minions, right? The common neutral minions are generally your curve cards. They're generally the uninteresting vanilla cards that, or like the cards that give like +2 temporary attack to something like Abusive Sergeant, a Dark Iron Dwarf, or like a Shattered Sun Cleric. They're not like terribly interesting, but they do have text, right? Like Cultmaster's in there, Kraken is in there. You have all these cards in there, and they're getting the shaft because Blizzard thinks they're not interesting, and no one likes them. And so you're going to have them, but we're going to reduce the amount. And this is... you take it. This like actually makes me like very angry. This makes me more angry than the other stuff.
This makes me angry, and you know what? It makes... I can sort of see what they're going for when you pair it with the increase in spells, right? Because whether it's true or not, and we can have a huge discussion about this, so don't blow your top just yet, all right? But it seems like here's what the developers are thinking. Whether it's right or wrong, people, like a very sort of simple and flippant comment that people make about the arena is, it's just curve stone, right? It's just curve stone, and there's no way for me to react. They play a 1, a 2, and a 3.
Yeah, there's no way for you to react. That's why you average 3 wins, and people who also don't know how to react can average 8. That's
Right.
there's no difference.
Like I said, don't blow your top just yet. All right.
There's no difference. There's just curve stone.
Stop. Nah, stop first. Okay, so I think this is what the developers are thinking. So, they have this common complaint, and we'll see this theme of they're taking these, like, sort of these big public crowd complaints and making changes based off of that. But they take this complaint and they're saying, okay, so assuming that is true, that, this game is just curve stone, or we should move away from, quote, curve stone. How do we move away from that? It's like, well, people want to be able to react, right? Because they're saying that, like, oh, I didn't have a 1, so I'm behind. And then they play 1, 2, 3. I only play 2, 3. That means I lose every single time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. Cool yourself. I can't see your face, but just calm down. So they're like, oh, spells can change that, right? It's like, what else changes that? Let's just get rid of curve stone, right? Let's just make sure that this is like a weird, funky, interactive thing. Like what is interactive? Yeti is not interactive. Kooky Chemist is interactive, right?
I don't know how you can like Blizzard's whole. The problem is Blizzard's whole entire thing about fun and interactive is interactions on the board. That's how they define fun and interactive. I didn't make up that definition.
No, but there's a difference between like the Kooky Chemist interaction with the board, in which you create stories, you create these like swings, rather than a 2-1 into a 3-2 into a 3-4 into a 4-5, and then you just like keep on trading up, or with a ping. You get efficient trades. Like, that's what is frustrating.
In order to be able to flip the stats of something, you need something on the board first.
Look, I understand. No, I totally get you.
Because you know what Kooky Chemist can flip? Kooky Chemist.
Look, I totally understand. But I think that's how they approached it, right? Like, so they're assuming that... so whether or not they believe that Arena has just sort of, devolved into curve stone, they have taken this complaint, I think, seriously, because these two things, reducing the rate of common neutrals and increasing spells, sort of addresses this problem. Whether or not you think it is,
I get it, but now you're playing a whole different game, and we'll get into what the meta is going to come in, and it's a worse game. And not just a worse game in that you have less fun in it. Maybe you will have more fun in it. I don't know. But it's a worse game in that strategically it is worse. Because minions take more skill to play than spells. Generally. And especially common neutral minions that don't do a lot take a ton of skill to play. Because they don't do a lot. The only thing adding value to them is your skill. If they did stuff, especially like reactionary cards, something has happened. You react to it. That's really easy. You know when to react to it, right? Then you play it and you're done. On the other hand, a minion doesn't do anything when it gets on the board, especially like a common neutral minion that does nothing, like a Yeti. You have to preemptively play it in anticipation of what your opponent could play the turn after and how your opponent could deal with it in order to make things as awkward and stupid for your opponent as possible. That's the skill. That is a huge level of skill above, I see my opponent has a minion. It is very big. I have a hex. I'm going to hex that. That seems like a good use of my hex. Done. Like,
yes, of course.
Hex is a very, very basic level, not high-skilled card. Yeti is above average skill, I'd say. There are cards that, involve even more skill, obviously. But, like, your base vanilla minions, curve stone or no curve stone, even if you had a Yeti and it said you are not able to play this card on turn 4, that would still be a higher than average skill card. Because you need minions. They form the backbone of your fun and interactive arena that you've been trying to push for. Without it, you're going to get into a different meta that we'll talk about later. But anyway, the destruction of the common neutral minions, or like common classic minions, not neutral. When I say classic. Neutral, sorry. Classic. It's just classic.
So, yeah. Like neutral classic.
Neutral classics, yeah.
Neutral classic, yeah. Sorry.
When I do that, when you're getting rid of that, it's like telling me that the devs either don't have a fundamental understanding of what creates skill in the arena, or, like, okay, so the spells and minions thing is even kind of worse in the sense of what are you doing, developers? But, like, the impact is small. This is a huge impact. And it's basically asking either one, do you not understand what you're doing? Or two, do you totally understand what you're doing and you really do just want to make Arena free for all, let's play random fancy stuff and swing everything back and forth every turn? Like, maybe that's what they want. Maybe Ben Bro played that and say, I have more fun doing that. Ben Bro, by the way, I've seen Ben Bro play Arena. He's not like an awful Arena player or anything. I don't know what he averages, like 5 or 6 wins per run. Like, he plays Arena. He like generally knows what's going on, right? And I'm sure the dev team knows probably even better than Ben Brode, like the balancing team, like how to get a high average in the Arena. Do they like not like doing that? Do they just want to like blow the whole thing up and just like have a swing back and forth and have the top players average like 5 wins and be like, that's good? Like maybe that's what they want to do. Maybe, I mean, that does lower the skill floor to play the Arena, right? It is better for new players if you destroy any semblance of structure in the Arena.
Yeah, I don't know. It's about exactly what their vision for the Arena is, right?
Yeah.
Because and with this, you are consciously making a choice. Because and sometimes you make a choice, but it is the most elegant solution, right? If they had just switched to standard, like we talked about before, you know, even though we don't love it, we agree that it is very elegant, right?
Yep, it's very elegant.
It's very elegant because you don't need to write any rules about it. As a player, you enter the Arena.
Yeah,
your
you
core
immediately
assumption,
understand.
Yeah, you immediately understand your core assumption.
Yeah.
With this, though, like when you add specific stuff, especially because you're not going to tell people about it on like the loading screen or whatever, right? I assume they're not.
They're not.
So when they click, you know, buy the Arena ticket, they don't get. It's like before you enter, we'd like you to know about these 20 additional rules.
Yeah. So those rules are
do
specifically what they want the Arena to look like very specifically. That is their vision.
So immediately, this is like very not elegant, right? It is like weird, cumbersome, and almost deceitful in some way.
Okay,
right?
but like you're going to do that. You're going to do a lot of stuff like that. That's how you. That's like a general complaint about additional things, and I'm okay with that. But when you're doing something like that, you don't. Your reasoning has to be that it makes the Arena better.
Yes. Yes.
So they think that makes the Arena better.
Your foundation for those decisions should be extremely sound.
Yeah.
And as we'll see, and you know, we'll talk about other stuff as well. Like, it seems like for a lot of these changes, the foundational reason is let's address these common complaints that people have. And these common complaints, I think, are very, very dangerous and very like you can't sort of like cater to the masses when it comes to these complaints. And it does seem like that's what they're doing with a lot of these small tweaks past, you know, just changing it to standard.
Yeah, but okay. Practically speaking, right now you're gonna have 3 tiers of common, neutral minions, and I really don't get why it's just common. Like, what about rares? Do you just like rares that are in the classic set better than you like your commons? Why? The rare cards aren't that great. They're not that interesting, at least. Anyway, you're going to have 3 levels of, well, like 5 levels of just like common cards that are neutral, that are happening everywhere. You're going to have your classic set in which the commons are, oh, and one of the things, we're going to talk about this afterwards, rarity. Your rares are going to be seen as often as your commons now. So what this means is, in the classic set, your common neutrals are going to be seen less, significantly less than your rare neutrals. You will see more MCTs than Yetis. That's a fact. That's what's going to happen starting Monday and Tuesday.
Wow.
You are going to see significantly more MCTs in the meta than you will Yetis. Like, how backwards and weird is that? Anyway, so those are the 2 different levels of your common neutrals. And then you have the level of your other neutral cards that have come in through expansions. And they get offered at like the normal rate, the MCT rate, basically. Which is still more than the Yeti rate. And then, on top of that, like, you have your current expansion offering rates, which is double right now, or like plus 50%, or they still haven't clarified what the heck that one is. But you get an even higher offering rate bonus on those. So that's your many levels of layering, and it's pretty hard to explain to someone who's not already like an Arena vet. But that's how they envision the Arena looking in terms of the stuff you play. But really, like, just focus on that. More MCTs than Yetis. Is that good for the meta? If you say yes, you're with Blizzard. If you say no, you're with the sane people who know what the heck is going on in the Arena and want the Arena to actually be skill-based. That's all. That's where I rest my case. MCT versus Yeti. Done. Okay. Next, the one more change that comes out. This one, again, I don't care that much about. I just don't like the fact that they did it, which is that they have Flamestrike and Abyssal offering rates. And it doesn't sound like... So first of all, one thing is, I thought they were going to take away the MSG offering bonus like they did with Karazhan, like halfway through the meta. But it doesn't seem like they're doing that. From what Ixar was saying on Reddit, it seems like they may be keeping the MSG offering rate, so that's the assumption we're assuming. But regardless, Abyssal will be halved from their bonus, so Abyssal will be offered as if it were like not a MSG card. And then Flamestrike will actually be halved, which means you'll see half the number of Flamestrikes as Frostbolts. Because Flamestrike is so oppressive in the meta. By the way, Flamestrikes right now happen, like, you on average get less than 0.5 Flamestrikes per deck. That's a fact.
So
less than 0.5 Flamestrikes per deck.
First, so
yeah, you can take this first. I need to simmer down a little. I'm still mad about MCT v Yeti.
Okay, so
the MCT v Yeti affects your entire arena, right? The more spells is just 20%. It affects things on the edges. Flamestrike is just one card, but like that other one, that screws everything.
So, okay, you definitely sit down, meditate a little bit. I'll begin. Like I said previously, with the past two changes, it seemed as though the driving force behind those changes was sort of community complaint, right? And then we come to this one, where we are reducing the offering rate of Flamestrike and Abyssal Force by 50%. And I can't see any other reason. I honestly can't see any other reason that they're doing this other than the community complains about these two cards the absolute most out of anything.
They're not the highest win rate cards in the game, FYI, statistically. In case you're saying, oh, but Blizzard has all the stats. They know better than you. They're definitely not.
No.
And Blizzard didn't say they are.
So, because if you think about it, what is unique about these two cards, right? Like, is it the fact that they're
really bad when your opponent plays them against you? Like, they feel really bad.
Yeah, they feel really bad.
You sink into a depression. You uninstall the game. You stop giving Blizzard money.
So, because, all right, like, if you're already thinking, no, it's because, like, they're AoEs or it's because they have value, like, it can't be those, right?
No,
like, why do they choose these two specific cards?
They actually increase the offering rates of a lot of the really bad AoE cards. Like, your Excavated Evils, that's going up. Hellfire is going up on offering rates. They specifically increase them. They're spells, right? Yes. Especially if they're like a rare spell. Oh, Shadow Flames everywhere now.
Shadow Flame. You're going to see Shadow Flame a lot more often.
You're going to hate Shadow Flame more than you already do. But you know why they didn't change it? Even though Shadow Flames are going to be offered twice as much as Flame Strikes now. They didn't change it because no one was complaining about Shadow Flame yet, because it was a rare and it wasn't seen all that often, whereas Flame Strike was a common. And so now, when people start complaining about the Shadow Flames, guess what's going to happen?
No, exactly, right? So they're making a change, and they're not thinking forward, and they're not thinking about the fact that you can't make changes based on community complaint. Like, a lot of people, and you can't make changes because...
If the community complains a lot, that's a sign that you should make some change. But you don't make the change the community asks for. Because the community doesn't know what they're talking about. The community is made up of average players who generally don't know how to play the game. And maybe that's your goal, right? If your goal is to sell more units of X, yes, the customer is always right. That's what you do. If your goal is to create something more strategic where, people can exert more skill onto it, then what you want to do is balance the two. And this is like the definition of not balancing the two. At least for the fewer common neutral minions, there could be like, we have a vision of the arena where it's about answers and responses, and it's not about Curvestone at all. And we know you, Adwicta, don't like it, but like that's our vision of the arena. Sorry. That's fine. I think they're making the game worse, but like that's at least a logically sound position.
Sure.
With Flamestrike and Abyssal, there is no logic. This is literally just people yell loud enough.
Right, and the question that would lead to this answer would have to be, what two cards do people complain about the most?
Exactly.
Let's address those.
And it's not even like even if I wanted to, even if I was a game developer and I wanted to address the fact that people complain about Flamestrike and Abyssal a lot and I really needed to get rid of those cards, I would say something like, all board clears dealing more than 2 damage should be reduced by 50% because that's too oppressive in the arena. That would be a fine rule. I would be okay with that. I hate board clears. Like, I absolutely hate board clears. I'm
Oh
totally
yeah,
okay
yeah.
with an arena with fewer board clears, right?
Right.
I'm like generally like a tempo player. I absolutely hate board clears. I've just had a huge thing about Abyssal, like, last week, just in the last Lightforge. I am no fan of Abyssal. I am totally okay with them. Like, I don't think it's a well-designed card or anything like that. I'm okay with them reducing the offering rate. Flame Strike, you can reduce the offering rate too, but you need to be consistent. You need to have the reasons why you do this, not be people complain loudly about the specific card, or if the reason driving you is people complain loudly about it, at least create something that's elegant and fits the game so that the game still makes sense. Right now, these are just two random rules.
Yes, two random rules in which, like, okay, if the random rule was like at least based on sort of future thinking, at least, sound game balance, I'm like, okay, maybe I can get behind that. But I actually can't think of any reason for this change other than the community doesn't like these two cards. Let's make the community think that they're going to be happier about this.
I mean, they may be happier about this, really. Like, if you've been scarred by flame strikes so many times and you have not gone to the arena, and you will not go back into the arena until there's no more flame strikes in the arena, this could incentivize you to go back to the arena. Like, that's why they're doing it. Like, that's why it's flame strike and abyssal. It's because these are the two specific cards that are driving people away from the arena.
Right.
And they're doing it because people are stupid. Because people are stupid, Blizzard's like, fine, we're going to cave to your stupid demands, even though it's not good for the arena, just to get you back in here now that we're making it better.
Right, and the next patch, it could be Shadow Flame, it could be Light Bomb, it could be...
But it's okay. Whatever. Like, what I'm saying is, it's okay to cater to people's, like, mental scarring, but, like, at least make the rule apply on a wider basis so it still makes sense. Because, look, if people are annoyed about Flame Strike and Abyssals, you think they're going to be okay with Shadow Flames? You couldn't just go one step further and be like, well, now that we've raised the percent chance you'll see a Shadow Flame by 250%, it's actually something that ridiculous. I'm not even, like, exaggerating.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to hate Shadow Flames. Like, Shadow Flame is worse. They can actually pick exactly how much attack to, like, destroy everything with. You can't play around it. It's, like, awful. Maybe we also lower Shadow Flame along with it. And you know what Blizzard did? They just didn't go that extra step. Because that wasn't on their radar, because they're not thinking ahead, because they're not thinking consistently. They are just responding to what people say. Like, we get X number of complaints about Flame Strike in the mailbag, sir. What should we do about it? Should we lower Flame Strike, sir? Well, that seems like a good idea. Why don't we try it? You try it? Do people seem to like the change? Yeah, they do. All right, let's make the change live. That's the exact process that went on. There's no one standing there being like, wait. Why do they hate Flame Strike, though? No one asked that question. Or whoever asked that question got silenced. And that's just bad game design.
Yeah.
This is also not like a gut reaction where, like, they came out with Abyssal and they immediately needed to, like, retract it. This is changes they've been working on for, like, 6 months, more than 6 months, maybe, like, a year now. Like, this is just a very disappointing thing to make it into the final product in terms of what it shows about their thought process.
So part of, and here is the difference between sort of like how we think of the game and how I think your average player thinks of the game. The average player, and look, understandably, why do you play a game? Because it's fun, right? Because it takes you away, it's takes you away from something else. It's fun, and you want to enjoy it. And for a lot of people,
I had a big argument with people on competitive Overwatch subreddit about, like, whether people should play the game for fun. It's totally random because it's about Overwatch, but, like, there's, like, actually a split. I'm actually surprised at how many people play competitive Overwatch and they think the primary purpose should be fun rather than winning in competitive Overwatch. So, arena, like, I don't think there's an argument over there. But here, you're right? Like, it's the arena. It's not the competitive arena mode, right? Like, it's just arena.
Sure.
It's entirely possible that Blizzard's just like, screw competitive. It'll do its own thing. Let's just make it fun. And then the competitive people will figure out how to min-max stuff themselves. We're not trying to create the next, like, chess here. This is arena. We're trying to create, like, a fun brawl environment. And you guys are, like, the weird outliers that's trying to, like, actually do well in this game mode. And so we don't care about you. You'll min-max whatever we put out anyway. I mean, just games need a certain amount of fun, and you do need to cater to people so that the game is fun, or else a lot of people won't play the game, and that's all totally fine and good. But you can do it in a good way, like I said, right? Like, you can get rid of Shadow Flame too, and that also makes the game more fun. That's the thing. They're all aligned. because people hate Abyssal and Flamestrike because they totally wipe away the board you spend so much time building with just one card, and there's not a good way to play around them, that they think there's not a good way to play around them.
Right.
And here you are raising Shadowflame, a card in which there actually is no good way to play around, and does the same thing.
So for regular players, and obviously, we are very far away from a quote regular player, right? We deeply analyze this stuff. We play it a lot. It's like a second job for us, right? So for people like us, like
really poorly paying second job.
Yeah, okay. I don't need another buzzkill on top of the buzzkill that we're talking about, okay? But yeah, so how we think about this is whenever we look at a decision, we don't even just think of it as like, oh, how will this affect me? It's like from the developer standpoint, because these are the people that sort of hold
God. Blizzard is our god.
They are the,
as far as Hearthstone's concerned, Blizzard is our god, all of our god
of this game that we want to see thrive and keep on growing in the future. Every single decision, sort of like, we try to get into their heads and sort of think about, it's like, why did they do this? And sort of what would future decisions be like? So that's why these three decisions that we've talked about so far really scare us. Like, it's not just, we're sad about it. It is actually scary if they keep this mold of decision making. Because this would just lead to, it's like, oh, what's the next card up? What's the next card that people hate, that they complain about? It's sort of like, what is the next way to address this problem that the community thinks exists? And then let's address it in the way that the community wants.
Yeah, the first part is good, right? We keep saying the first part is good. You do have to make people like your game, and community feedback is very important. We're literally asking them to take community feedback and implement it pretty quickly. But you don't just take people literally, because the people who are complaining aren't thinking like game developers. They're thinking like users. They got Flamestrike. They don't like it. They complain about Flamestrike. They're not thinking about Shadowflame. You should be thinking about Shadowflame. That's your job as the game developer, to take their complaints about Flamestrike and bring Shadowflame in. Anyway, okay, we need to move on from this topic. I could talk about it all day. You can talk about it all day too, but there's more to talk about. Now let's move on to a change I actually like. This is going to standard and this rarity change that we're going to talk about are the two changes that I actually really like, and I think Blizzard's doing a good job on it. And it's about time they did this. So rarities have changed, as I'm sure you know, and that is actually going to be the single biggest impact on the arena. Is this rarity change? And so we'll go over. I'm going to go over exactly what the stats are for the rarity change, just because Blizzard released some numbers in some ways, but that's very confusing to me. I'm going to put it all together for you guys. Currently, and I'm comparing everything to current, and this is thanks to some numbers that Arena Drafts ran for us. ArenaDrafts.com. It's like a tracker that uses our tier list. So commons will be seen 75% of the time compared to where they currently are. So, and this is just, I'm going to use class cards because, again, we don't know. This is not accounting for the fact that there will be fewer common classic minions. I don't know how to account for that because we don't know the percentage. But we'll figure that out once the patch is actually released. So, let's say a Frostbolt, right, will be 75% of what's currently seen. Or a Water Elemental. I also didn't add in the 20% for more spells. So let's say Water Elemental. A Water Elemental will appear 75% of how often you currently see it. So there will actually be a reduction in Water Elemental, despite getting rid of some cards from the game. Rares, on the other hand, will be seen 150 times what's currently seen. So there will be 150 times what you currently see, 150% of what, so 1.5 times what you currently see Blizzard as. Which is not a huge change. It's just balanced by the reduction of commons. So I know people are thinking because Ixar made a statement that says you're going to see each particular rare card as frequently being offered to you as you see each particular common card. But what he actually means is there's going to be a reduction in commons and a rise in rares. So it's not like you're going to see twice as many Blizzards as you see right now. You're going to see 1.5 times. And these are all important changes. Because right now you never play around rares, but now you may, right? Because to the extent that you play around commons, you would play around rares because they're equal now. But I just want to give you this anchor here. The biggest change is happening to epics. epics are going to be seen 1,000 times what is the level it is currently being seen.
Okay, wait, sorry. 1,000%.
Percent. 1,000%.
Wait. Okay. Let's backtrack a second. Rares are not going to be seen 150 times more. 150%. There is a big difference between those.
It's not a 150% increase. It's just times. It's 150% of the current value. So it's like a 0.5 increase for rares.
Right.
Or
Sorry.
1.5 times the current value.
50% increase, 150 times.
Yes. And common. Yeah. Okay. So not 1,000 times the amount of rares. That would be insane. We would all be drowning in. We would all be drafting just like I don't know who has the best epic.
28 elemental destruction deck.
Oh yeah.
Bring it.
Okay, but it's 10 times.
Oh my god.
It's going to be offered 10 times the rate that it's currently offered at. And the epics aren't currently offered all that frequently at all. So this isn't like as ridiculous of a change as this sounds, but it means it's going to be offered more than half the times a rare/common will be offered. So it is basically the epics are now the new rares. They're not going to be offered as often as rares are right now. The rate is actually still like, significantly lower than that. But its relationship to the other cards, the way you think about it, is a little more than half. So in the same way that rares are right now being offered a little more than half commons. So to the extent you're already thinking about this, bump everything up, right? Make rares and commons the same, and then make epics rares. To the extent that you had never thought about this kind of stuff before, just know that you're going to start seeing epics in the arena regularly, like as a thing, right? Like almost as often as you see rares now.
Previously, you could never make a read about epics. Now, if you have some information, you can definitely make a read about it. It's just like how you could make reads on rares, right? Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So that's epics. And then again, legendaries is going to be 7.5 times the current offering rate, which means like that's for each individual one. But in reality, it means you're going to get one per deck. So
it's about because it used to be like one every 3. Yeah. So now it's one every draft, approximately.
Yeah. So, I don't really know. The thing I can't really evaluate is how this legendary change is going to impact the arena. Because legendaries are weird and big and do, like, different stuff. But we'll see.
They could do a lot or they could do nothing.
Yeah. So that's the rarity change. And I like it because it gets more cards into the meta, right? Essentially. You get to play with more, like, variety of cards. So to the extent that people were complaining about, like, Wild going away, well, you're getting epic cards now. That seems like a weird thing to say, because you always had epic cards, but you're actually getting to play with these epic cards now. So I think it kind of makes up for losing a whole bunch of cards in some sense.
Yeah, I sometimes, and I still have it. I think like last week, an epic card popped up. I don't even remember what it was. I was just like, this is the first time I've ever seen this card. Like just like ever seen it.
Especially
it was
if
like
it's a below average epic card and people don't
pick
it.
Yeah, so epic cards were always sort of the garnish of the arena, right? You would sprinkle one in here or there, and sometimes like they'd play an epic card like, what was it, Blubber Baron or something? I totally forgot about that card.
It's like a Cthulhu card. Are you sure you didn't get it out of like a Spellslinger or whatever?
Right. And now epics are actually, I would say this is sort of the introduction of epics into the actual card pool almost. Right? Yep.
And it will bring weird things into the meta as well, like things that you may not have realized still existed in the arena, like Ancestor's Call. Will now be offered at an alarming frequency to you, and you're going to be more mad that they're going to be offered. Although I will say about Ancestor's Call, I got it from a Spellslinger, opponent Spellslinger. Like I think this was actually yesterday. And it worked out really well. Like I actually like made it do something. I made it pull out one of the like discover cards so it couldn't discover anything, and I timed it so that it pulled out my like 8-drop or 10-drop or something. So it was like insanely good actually. Like it actually did its job, and it helped me win the game. So hey, not totally useless. That's why we changed it from 0 to a 3 on the Lightforge tier list like a couple months back. I realized it wasn't actually literally useless. Okay, so. That's a change that we like because of getting more diversity into the card pool without while still limiting the amount of cards that are in there that you have to kind of know. And again, like it's kind of unfair to Blizzard that we kind of go off the rails on these like changes that we disagree with, and we devote like 5 minutes to cover this huge change. Literally, the biggest change that's happening to the arena is this rarity change. But that's because we like it. We agree with them. We think it's a great move. Like, this is not just like an effort award. This is like a really good job, Blizzard. I think this is like going to be a very good balance. And you do want to see more legendaries in the arena. Like, I don't know why, looking back on it, it feels kind of weird that we so rarely see legendaries in the arena. And after having played like Shadowverse, where you are guaranteed 2 legendaries, or however many legendaries in each
you're guaranteed one at the beginning and one at the end.
Yeah. Like, I think they kind of overdo it, but like 1 per deck in Hearthstone seems like a good, like, I like that rate.
I think, and not to get too much into it, but in Shadowverse, you build around your legendaries. Like,
oh, right, they guarantee it on the first pick.
Right, to guarantee on the first pick, and then you can build around it. And in Shadowverse, you tend to have more deck-defining legendaries than you would have in Hearthstone.
That's true.
Right? Where you just have powerful stuff, but it doesn't necessarily like sort of synergize with a deck.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that could be good for Hearthstone too, just to make the very first card a guaranteed legendary and then lower the legendary rate again. Just to like give you that excitement. I know I'm always excited because the first pick is always at least like a rare or something, right? So your legendary offering rate is actually higher, and so picking the legendary, like, you get offered as your number 1 pick a legendary some frequent amount of times, right? Like, to the extent you get legendaries at all, and that's always very exciting for me to get a deck and to start off with a legendary. So, but anyway, I like the changes that they are now. I'll wait to see how it is. But like most of the things we're going to talk about later for the meta is going to be driven by this change right here, the rarity. And again, I know I'm talking about rarity, like, but the numbers I was giving you before also takes into account that we're going to standard and we're losing GVG and Nax. So they're the end result. It's not just the rarity change.
Right. So just a clarification. When you're talking about these numbers and everything, we're still talking about the meta after these changes, but before the next expansion.
Yes.
Right.
And so far we have not talked about the next expansion at all. And I just want to very quickly go into the next expansion, just because this has nothing to do really with, and it's 2 months away. It has nothing to do with what's going on right now. That's immediate, and we're already running. We've been talking for too long. So in the next expansion, in 2 months, when Ugamaro, the dinosaur expansion.
What?
What's it called?
Wait, what?
It's not Ugamaro?
What was it? Yeah, dude, it totally is.
You Ugamaro. Okay.
You nailed it. Yeah.
So when Ugamaro comes in, BRM, TGT, and LOE are going to be removed. Bro. Which means at that point, all the cards that are left over will get plus 20% offering rate. If there is no set bonus. And we don't know what they're going to do with set bonuses at that point. If there is a set bonus, it may be like the offering rate may actually stay the same through the next expansion. So it's not going to be that big of a change when the next expansion comes out in terms of existing cards, but they will remove a whole bunch of cards and obviously add a whole bunch. And hopefully by then they'll like have tweaked these rules, these arbitrary / response to people complaining rules into things that make more sense for the arena by then. Like I said, right, I've written the next 2 months off. It's going to be a horrible meta. Blizzard will figure it out, hopefully, before too long. And in the meantime, I'm just going to be having fun with it. As maybe Blizzard intended. So, yeah. And expansions after Ugamoro will dilute the pool even further. So when the last expansion comes out in, like, I don't know, December or whatever, it will, like, really dilute the pool. Like, at that point, you will, like, really never ever see a Yeti.
Yeah, man. That new expansion. What a doozy.
Okay. All right. So that's our like game design kind of like perspective and kind of explaining to you exactly what is happening technically speaking and whether we like it or not from a game design perspective. Now we're going to move into the practical, useful parts, right? Like I say, I'm writing off the next 2 months as a dead zone for the arena. I'm gonna still play the arena. That's what I do, and it's gonna be interesting because it's gonna be a whole new meta. And I might as well figure out what this like. I'm gonna call it the answer and response. The threat and response or threat and answer meta, which has an unfortunate acronym. But I'm going to kind of elaborate on what I mean by that and what's going to happen, and you'll see it immediately. But just so you're not caught unawares, hopefully this will help you process what's about to happen in the arena in a lot quicker, and so you can adjust to it more. And to the extent that you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, you probably care about winning, and this will help you win more quicker than if you were to adjust by yourself, hopefully. And maybe you already know all this, but I'm going to try to go into as much detail as possible and cite my reasons for why these things are going to happen. So here's the meta preview of the Arena 7.1 meta. Okay. There will be 3 main things that's going to happen, and I'm going to break it up into 3 main parts. The first part is Curve on 2 is dead. Second is the 3-drop meta completely shifts. And the third, the 3-drop meta will still exist, it's just completely shifting. And the third is that we are in an answer and response meta now instead of Curve Stone. Okay. So, first, and like chime in whenever, Merbs, because I have this like whole like outline thing written out. And, you know, so I'm not lecturing for like a half hour.
Got it.
Like ask questions and or like chime in with stuff. You have my outline. Okay, so why is Curve on 2 dead? Increase in spells means necessarily a reduction in minions. I calculated the effect of this. The net effect is every minion is going to be offered about 10% less. Next, increase in rare and epics is an even bigger change because there are no like 2 mana curve cards in rares and epics. Literally, only 1 rare and 1 epic 2-drop remains after standard kicks in. So that's a net effect of minus 20% reduction in minions. Then, the neutral minions, which are the backbone of the arena and all your 2-drops, have an additional decrease that I'm not even accounting for right now because I don't know what that decrease is, but it's going to be pretty big, and I'll like estimate it later. And on top of all that, GVG leaving loses 8 2-drops. 8 actual 2-drops.
That's a high number, man.
Nax. You know, Nax had like 20 cards or something? Nax had like no cards. It was the first expansion. We were happy to get anything, right? It's not like the normal like 75 card expansions, adventure expansions they're putting out now. Nax had like 30 or 40 cards. I really don't remember. But within them, there were 3 neutral 2-drops. 3 neutral 2-drops. I'm including Chow as a 2-drop, but because it functions as a 2-drop essentially. Like it can literally replace
it's
a 2-drop.
statted like a 2.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So 3 in Nax, 8 in GVG. To give you a comparison, MSG, the latest expansion that had like 140 cards or 130 cards or whatever, has 1 2-drop in neutrals.
Yep.
1.
Bartender.
Yeah, it's Bartender. And I love Bartender. And I
Oh,
want
it's
more
a great
Bartenders.
card, but it only has 1. Obviously we're not counting cards like Socialite,
Yeah,
or
2/2s
Global
aren't
Sniper.
2-drops. Snipers, they need your opponent. That's half removal, half 2-drops. But
Yep.
your 2/3s and your 3/2s and your things that trade evenly with both 2/3s and 3/2s are what we're kind of considering here. You're getting rid of 11 neutral commons. Neutral commons shape the arena. We've already, we know about that. Well, these are not classic cards, so it wasn't like these were cards that were going to get a reduction anyway. They weren't. They are, set cards. 11 of them. Do you know how many common neutrals there are, total?
No idea.
That are 2 mana and can possibly be played on a curve? Something like 30.
Yeah.
So we're getting rid of
a third of
11 of them. Okay. And keep in mind, all the recent expansions that are coming out just have fewer and fewer 2-drops. Fewer and fewer 2-drops are coming out with each expansion. So I'm guessing Ugamoro, or whatever that expansion is called, is going to have a whole ton of 2-drops. Or else Blizzard's destroying the arena even further. Because it's going to get rid of a whole 3 sets, each of which has more 2-drops in it than any set that comes afterwards. So that's something to consider. So when it comes to 2-drops rated above a 50, you get a 33% loss for GVG and Nax leaving. I calculated, I'm not going to bore you with the math. So the total loss of 2-drops is minus 50% after you factor out all those in multiplicatively. With only a 15% loss in total cards, which is a net 40% loss of the 2-drop offering rate. So if you were offered 6 2-drops now, you would be offered, I don't know, 4? Something like that.
There.
4 2-drops.
Yeah, napkin math, it's about 4,
yeah.
right?
And that's not good.
Yeah.
And this is all before accounting for the further reduction in common classic neutral cards, which is the backbone of almost all the remaining 2-drops in the meta. So the real thing is going to be less than 50%. Almost certainly. Almost certainly you're going to see half the amount of 2-drops you see now. That's alarming. Because remember what we talked about when December first came around and MSG first came around. It was very clear about it. I'm like, unless you're a rogue or a mage, you're taking every 2-drop that comes out. Like they get such high priority, or else you're just not going to curve out because there's such a decrease in 2-drop offering rates, and that still somewhat applies. We overestimated the offering bonus that Blizzard was going to apply, but it still kind of applies. You could skip like 1 2-drop right now and be okay, right? Like just practical experience. We've been in this meta for so long. So now with the 50% drop in 2-drop rates, that means no matter what you pick, and remember, even if you have class 2 drops, they're not going to have additional offering rates because they're not spells. So no matter what class you are, no matter what you're doing, you are not going to curve out on 2. I'm going to repeat this. No class will curve out on 2. You are not allowed to draft a curved stone deck that curves out on 2, unless you get really lucky, which means that you shouldn't go for it in the very beginning, and if you like fall into it, fine, but you shouldn't be drafting for it at all. Now, what happens if most of your opponents don't curve out on 2, which is what will happen? If most of your opponents don't curve out on 2, then they're going to curve out on 3, right? You get one more card, you can mulligan for it harder, and the 3-drop loss is not anywhere near as bad as the 2-drop loss. There's still a loss. You're losing Ogre and you're losing Spider Tank, but we have a lot of 3-drops right now. If anything, we have like a 3-drop, like more 3-drops than we need in the current meta.
You have too many than you need.
Yeah, so it's going to kind of correct for it, and you're going to, with the new focus on 3-drops, you're going to be able to get enough 3-drops. So that's going to be the new meta. The curve is going to start on 3. 2-drops are going to be not quite as rare as 1-drops were, but you're not going to be expected to curve out on 2, and neither will your opponent. And if your opponent doesn't curve out on 2, 2 3s are useless. Because, like, what are 2 3s for? They're for killing 1-drops, and they're for trading with 3 2s. And so if your opponent has, like, a 50% chance to have a 3-2, or another 2-3 or whatever, you're just going to get it. It's just going to get eaten by any 3-drop your opponent plays. And what are 2 3s? That's like half the 2-drops, right?
Yeah.
Curves work in deck building only if you can reasonably guarantee that you'll get the curve. So if you are building a curvestone deck, missing a 2-drop is a loss. You don't build curvestone decks, which cause everybody to not take 2s, which cause 2 3s to not be viable in the meta. And that means that we are at now 25%, probably more like 30%. There's more 3 2s left than 2 3s because most of the 2 3s are GVG cards. So something like 33%, 30 to 33% at most of the 2-drops that you're going to be offered are still viable as 2-drops from the existing offering rate right now.
Yeah. So this is the part where we definitely get a little bit lecturing or whatever, but this is like the information that you want to know. This is the information that will actually get you ahead in the next meta, right? Knowing like the proper stat distributions, and we've seen this shift between and this is a very important question because this is when the game starts, and we've had the answer swing back and forth between what is better, 2-3 or 3-2, and we've had dramatic shifts going from expansion to expansion. And by you not knowing which is better, it puts you behind from the very start of the game, or
because
even before
the
draft.
In the drafting, it puts you behind.
Yeah.
Because you're either taking 2 3s as 3 2s, even though 3 2s are better, or you're taking 3 2s higher than 2 3s, even though they're pretty much the same. And like in GBG meta, 2 3s were arguably better than 3 2s.
Oh,
because
yeah,
there were so many 1-drops.
Yeah, there's so much aggro.
Yeah.
Yep.
But now, 2 3s are basically unplayable. Like, if you're taking a 2 3, you're taking it for its ability. And 3 2s are playable, but you shouldn't ever expect a curve. And that, in turn, means that cards like... Valence Chosen's gone, but like the Paladin one, that buffs on 3?
Seal of Champions?
Yeah, Seal of Champs. So, like, Seal of Champs is no longer as good because it's not a curve card anymore. It used to be a curve card some percentage of the time. Now it's 0% time, like very rarely a curve card. And if you curve, it will, like, it's fine. It's still as good as it was, but your chances of curving is way lower. So this is huge. This is, like, ridiculously huge. You will not see 2s anymore. You will see, like, rather than seeing 6 2-drops, you will see, like, 2 3 2s in your opponent's deck. And that's what should be in your deck as well. What's more likely to happen in the transition period immediately is people are still going to try to take 2-drops because that's what they think it worked in the arena. And they're going to screw up, and so they're going to have like this like low value deck with too many 2-drops that don't curve out anyway. And so you will just be ahead by taking fewer 2-drops because you have a heavier deck. Like, that's all. So in the transition period, just know that your deck, if you know this information and your opponent doesn't, you will have generally a heavier deck than your opponent, which is good because no one's curving out. And curve is stupid anyway when you can just remove anything because you have like more removals.
Right. And because a lot of, not only are early game cards leaving, like, we'll go through it. I think you're going to go through later on as well, but the fastest ones are leaving, right? Like the most powerful, the fastest ones are leaving. So the ones that are,
I'm not going to go through it later. So let's elaborate on this point.
Sure. So you have a lot of sort of like overstated, no, sorry, not the fastest, like sort of the overstated power minions are leaving, right? In terms of like Zombie Chow, Haunted Creeper, right? Like stuff that like creates a lot of power. And what you're left behind with are stuff that is just like, 2 3s and 3 2s, right? Stuff that you're not so afraid of because they don't like provide the extra stats that you sort of like shouldn't get on turn 1 or turn 2.
Yep. That's right. So yeah, that's the new 2-drop meta. It's 3 2s or bust, and don't expect to have anything close to a curve. Either you or your opponent. Your curve will start on 3. Your opponent will have a 3-drop. If you have a coin, you're going 1 3 3. Like, ideally. Or maybe you're going 1 hero power on 2 and then 4 4, right? Like, depending on what your hand is. Which you do sometimes now anyway, but just you will definitely not like coin out 2 into 2. And what this also means, and we'll go over it later, is that Rogue gets this like huge advantage because it's the only one with an actual on-tempo 2-drop no matter what in its hero power. But it also has a downside for Rogue because Rogue needs combos, and combo needs combo starters, and a lot of combo starters are 2-drops. So it's like, it's kind of give and take over there. But generally, you like the Rogue right now because it's going to curve out on 2 when your opponent mage is just pinging you to the face. You can basically bank 2 tempo. Okay, so that's the 2-drop meta, and that's going to be the biggest change. That's what's going to drive a lot of the other changes. And we'll the very last one, the answer and response meta, we'll cover like how to play more thoroughly. Right now, this is just like building up the setting to the game, right? Like, no more 2s. Okay. 3-drop meta, and if you're wondering, like if you're looking at the Lightforge tier list and you're wondering when that's going to be updated, it's not going to be updated anytime soon because the meta is shifting so hard that pretty much most of the numbers are going to have to change. So for now, just like auto adjust in your head based on what I'm telling you right now. It's mostly going to affect curve cards more than other cards. Other cards will move by like 1 or like 2 points, but your curve cards are going to move by a lot. Like 2 3s are like tanking by like at like 10 points or something like that. It's going to be bad. And we'll go into more about how this works right now with the 3-drop meta. But just know that it's going to take us a while to update it in a way that actually is as like precisely accurate as it is right now. Just because like our fundamental assumptions about what a curve is no longer true. So it's going to take a little bit of work. Okay. So 3-drop meta is going to shift hard. That's the second point.
This is a huge change.
This is ridiculously big change because your curve starts on 3 now. So this is now like the equivalent of like how great your 2-drops are. Spider Tank and Ogre Brood are gone. This is important because Spider Tank and Ogre Brood are 2 of like the only good drops, 3-drops that had 4 health.
Yep.
Your other ones are like Coliseum Manager for certain classes, and then like that tentacle thing that's like 2/4.
Right.
You don't have a lot of 2/4s even. Like, the problem is you actually don't have a lot of 2/4s in this game.
Yeah, true.
And on the other hand, 4 3s are everywhere, and they're getting more prevalent. What's a 4 3 right now? Higher Gun, Saboteur, Toxic Sewer, Injured Blade Master, Lights Champion, Violet Illusionist, and questionably Jungle Panther. It's a 4/2, but it has stealth.
Right.
That's a lot of your 3-drops. And a lot of those cards, pretty much all the rare cards, and remember, the rare neutral cards are not actually getting a debuff in terms of the offering bonus. They're all 4 3s. And so they're all going to have a huge raise in offering rate. which is why you're going to be fine in terms of getting your curve, but your curve is going to be mostly made up of 3-drops. What are your other cards? You have some 3/3s, like Zubat, Earthen Ring, and MCT, and then you have Scarlet Crusader, Harvest Golem, and Emperor Cobra, which are like the weird cards. But that's just 6 cards. All the other stuff that I'm talking about, like Squirming Tentacles becomes incredibly good. So we're going to throw that one back up. It got a little worse in this meta, but it's going to be one of the top cards in the next meta. But like I just rattled off a huge list of like 10 cards that were 4/3s, and I only have like 6-7 non-4/3s. So that's going to give you an idea. And these are just like good cards, right? So and there's no more 3/4s at all, except in class cards. So that's going to give you a very good idea of what the 3-drop meta is going to look like. It's going to look like 4/3s. You're just going to be forced to pick them because you're going to need 3-drops because you still want to curve out on 3 rather than skip turn 3, because you already skipped turn 2. Like, you skip turn 2 and turn 3, even if it's not curve stone, you have to be doing stuff during those turns, you know?
Yeah.
So
one thing that I do want to comment, and I see this sort of being discussed right now, because we just spent a lot of time talking about how good 3/2s are, right? You know, that was a previous discussion. And then when we get to the 3-drops, and because, you know, people are trying to play this game, that it's like, oh, what would be good against that? And you have to think about it as a whole, because I see some discussion right now saying it's like, oh, that means 2/4s are actually good. But then you have to think about the fact that it's like, why are we not saying that 2/4s are good? Because it's like, oh, you know, you leave a 2/1 on the on the board. You're missing 2-drops. That's the most important part, right? You're missing 2-drops. And if the game, you know, sometimes starts on game 2, but sometimes doesn't, you put down that 2/4, they put down the 4/3.
That's everywhere. That's everywhere. Everyone has a whole bunch of 4/3s.
You are suddenly extremely behind, right? So you don't just think of the direct counterpoint to like what they could possibly play in turn 2. You think of the meta as a whole, right? And that's what we're trying to provide to you guys. So sort of like, what happens on 2? How does it affect 3? How does that affect 4? And then how does that, like, if at all, goes back to 2, right? Like, these all affect each other in the decision making, and everyone is trying to, you know, adjust to it. So a big point to all of this, and this, you know, it's very messy. Never just think of any direct counter to what people are picking without thinking of how it affects your game and their game on a very macro level. Yeah.
And just in case you're still not buying the fact that 2/3s are dead, even all the weird, like almost all the other cards that you get, that are not like 4/3s are like 3/3s. And that's still a card that 3/2s take care of and 2/3s don't. Like, 2/3s are so dead. They are so unbelievably dead. So yeah. So 4/3s are not as valuable as they were before because there's too many of them, and because the only 2-drops you're ever going to see are 3/2s. So you're never going to get to eat that 2/3, which sometimes happens when you had a 4/3. And also, with so many 4/3s, 5/4s are no longer as good. We have 5/4s rated pretty highly, but you're going to see this kind of like reversion to how things were before, where the things with higher attack and lower defense just get like a lot worse than the ones that are Yeti statted and similar. And that's kind of unfortunate because it really opened up more gameplay options to be able to have those two on like near parity. Like 5/4s in the MSG meta were almost as good as 4/5s. Almost as good as 4/5s. Now they're going to be way worse. And it's going to be sad. Because now you're going to... And remember, Mech Yeti's gone. So you only have 1 4/5 in the entire meta, and it's getting a hugely reduced offering rate. So, like, what is even the 4-drop meta? It's going to be crazy. No one knows. It's going to be lots of, like, incredibly random cards. Pilot of Shredder's gone, right? Dark Iron Dwarf is not really a 4-drop. So you have, Evil Heckler.
Up, right? Yeah, like the game is basically sometimes starting on 2 now. A lot of times it's starting on 3, and you know, you don't have the residual minions to Dark Iron.
You have nothing. It's going to be, the meta is going to be Evil Heckler, Naga Corsair, Daring Reporter. Like, that's what you're going to see everywhere. And it's a lot of 5/4s, even though they're not as good anymore. But they're the ones that are not in the classic set that you get to see. Ancient Shade will appear some amount, but like Ancient Shade is like so bad now because it dies to most 3-drops. Your Senjins, you're not going to see a lot because it gets reduced offering rate. Your Ancient Brewmasters, you're not going to see a lot. Silver Moon Guardians, not a lot. Aberrant Berserkers, you're going to see sometimes. But anyway, I'm not going to go down the whole entire list. Violet Teachers obviously get better because 3/5s get better in general. As 5/4s decrease in value and people start picking weirder 4-drops, 3/5s get better. Also, 3/5s conveniently takes care of 4/3s really, really well. So your 3/5s are going to get a lot better. And also, especially with Violet Teachers, with the increased offering rate, you're going to be offered it a lot, and it has a spell synergy, which you're going to get more of. It's just in a very good place right now in this meta. Which is fair. Like in Classics, like right now, Violet Teacher's rated at 51 in our tier list. In Classic, that was like a premium card.
Yeah, it was.
It's just what Blizzard's doing again. They're going back to Classic, but like totally destroying the two drop curve. It's okay. So this is like, I hope this argument has convinced you about how the 2, 3, 4 curves are shifting and what's going to happen. Because this is fundamental in our analysis of what's going to happen next to the rest of the game. You're not going to have 2s. No one's going to have 2s. You're going to have some 3/2s. Maybe, if you're lucky, you get to play at 3/2 on 2. But like half the games you won't. And then your 3s are going to be probably 4/3s. You're going to be sad a lot because your opponent will have a 3/2. You'll have a 4/3, and you'll lose the game. Like, I'm not even kidding. Blizzard thinks they solved the problem of Curvestone. They haven't. They've just now upped the RNG of who ends up with the 3/2 on 2 and who has to play the 4/3 on 3 into the 3/2 on 2.
Yes. Yep. That is going to be the new, like, just the new, like, if you got it, you got it game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's going to be like the equivalent of like the Bomber.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. I don't know if Blizzard's doing this because they think they've solved Curvestone, but they've just pushed it back a turn, but they've increased the amount of 1-drops in the meta. Which is actually, like, this is going to be GVG all over again. Just starting on 2/3 rather than starting on 1/2.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is hugely random, very snowbally, very bad. The snowball is going to be cut down a bit on the increase in spell, so they are, like, hedging for it a bit, which is good. But even if it doesn't snowball, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage when their 2-drop kills your 3-drop, like, most of the time, if they have a 2-drop.
Right. Because what's sort of the beauty of having sort of higher defense minions? They almost always ensure, even if the opponent gets a free trade, they have to slow down, or they need like an Elven Archer kind of card, right?
Yep.
They need one of those. The problem when you have offensively statted minions, they have the potential to trade up, but they also have the potential to be traded up on, right? Like your Raptor trades up onto your opponent's hired gun, which could trade up onto your, like Ancient Brewmaster, right? But you have this, it's whoever gets that first has a huge advantage because you just like eliminated one of the cards and gained a very crucial mana at a point of the game in which one mana means everything.
Yep, exactly. And so this is, I mean, and if you're wondering about GVG, back in GVG, there were a lot of spells too. We're just restoring the spell rate of GVG, if even. I don't even know if we get to that many spells as GVG had, because GVG didn't have a lot of cards at that point.
Right.
So all the classic spells
we're
already
not saying,
existed.
when we make comparisons to GVG, it's not going to be as fat. Like, you never start with like the Zombie Chow into a 2 into like.
Yeah,
like
it's going to be one turn slower, but the effect is the same.
The snowball effect is there in terms of, on the board. Obviously, like you said, it'll never be the same snowball because it is one turn slower, and you're going to have more lightning storms and consecrations and whatnot. But people, if my memory serves me correct, people didn't like that, right?
No,
they
people
didn't
hated
like
it.
Yeah, they didn't like how.
Like they liked it in the
early
beginning for like
played
2
out.
weeks, and then they hated it.
Sure, right. They didn't like how it played out in terms of like stuff was trading up a little bit too often, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't really have much choice about it.
That's the thing. There's no agency. Yeah. You don't get to do anything about it. And Blizzard I feel like Blizzard wants to make this thing where, or this is the next topic we're going to go, which is the threat and response meta, which is that they want you to feel like your opponent has a threat, you can take care of it. And to the extent that you can't, it means you run out of answers. And you're kind of like, oh, well, at least I took care of a bunch of answers. I don't feel too bad. It's not like I got Flame Striked off the board. But they're not really going to make that happen as much as they think they will. Because it's just shifting everything back one. And it's making it worse in terms of the and the randomness of who has what when. Like, the great part about Curvestone is that everybody has Curvestone. Once you make it so that it's RNG based on what your first cards are, who has Curvestone and who doesn't have Curvestone, you've given one person a really big advantage. And people will still sometimes have Curvestone. It's not like you're not going to pick 3-2s. 3-2s are fine. 3-2s are totally great in this meta. It's not like 2-drops are totally dead, but 2-drop as a curve card is dead. So your 2-drops are now functioning the same as like a zombie challenge turn 1. And that's a problem if you care about like letting your skill determine your outcome rather than letting your first few cards. Because on GVG, the complaint is by turn 3 you know who won, which was entirely true in GVG. And so now by turn 4 you know who won. It's going to be entirely true in I don't know, whatever you call this, in 7.1 meta. Okay. So other factors about the answer and response meta for what happens after turn 4, after you already know who's going to win like 85% of the time, or when neither side has a 2-drop, and then you're actually in Curvestone again, and it's kind of fair. Okay, so now, because of the increase in rarity, especially to epics and rare cards, all the classes have a lot of access to huge games-changing spells. I'm going to change the format of this, if you're watching this on video, to show the tier list, because I want to like highlight some of the spells here. So I'm going to go over how some of this is going to affect what classes are doing. The most important spells, as always, is board clear, right? Because if things are going to have a snowball potential, you can let it snowball and then still come back if you have a board clear, and your opponent can't snowball too hard. So the classes with the most board clears are going to be Mage, Warlock, and Priest, because Mage has Blizzard as a rare card. Warlock, like, the big change is going to be in Warlock, and we'll talk about Warlock more specifically later, but Warlock will play nothing like Warlock plays now. And it's going to be because of two things. They are called Doom and Twisting Nether. They're both epic cards. You never see them now. You're going to see them all the frickin' time in the new meta, because they're going to be offered at all the freaking time, and you're going to be taking them all the freaking time because they're good cards. Doom especially, but also Twisting Nether, and they are both entering the meta for the first time, like really entering the meta. And yeah, Blizzard's getting rid of Abyssal Enforcers, but if you think Warlocks are going to be board clearing less, you're in for a surprise. They're going to be board clearing more.
Yep.
It is better than Abyssal in the sense that they can board clear anything, but then you get to set up again. So it's a good way to starve you for cards. It's not a good way to flip on you and then like hit you to the face twice and win, right? So it'll feel less bad, but it'll still feel bad. I don't know. I never feel good when my opponent dooms. I never have ever felt good in my life when my opponent used Doom. And so Warlock's going to have a lot of board clears. Shadowflame. We were talking about Shadowflame earlier as a hugely problematic card for making people feel bad. That's going to be offered right now more frequently than Flamestrike is right now. Like, much more frequently. We're talking like 50% increase on Flamestrike, on current Flamestrike rates. More than that, actually. Probably like 75% increase rate. Almost double. And you're going to just get Shadowflamed a lot. So, Priest also. We know that Priest has all these like rare and epic board clear spells that will enter the meta more so than it already is in the meta, right? You have like Shadow Madness, you have Dragonfire Potion, Cabal Shadow Priest, which I know is not a board clear, but it's one of those like MC Tech kind of deals. And they're going to be kind of everywhere. So those are the classes that are going to get a huge leg up on this because they have the board clears and they're having a very significant increase in the amount of board clears. You will draft those board clears. You will face those board clears. You can bet your opponent has a couple in their hand every game. You will need to play around them. And next, Shaman and Hunter have 3 each, which are okay. That's like the normal classes. And then Druid, Rogue, Warrior, and Paladin each have 1 to 2. So those are the classes that are in danger of getting blown out when your opponent has a lot of stuff. And so they need to keep the board clear. They need to play in a tempo fashion. And remember what we said about playing in a tempo fashion? How it doesn't work? How it's hugely RNG now? Well, those are the classes that are going to be most affected by that. Your Druid, your Rogue, your Warrior, your Paladin. Rogue, again, mitigated a bit by the fact that they always have a 2-drop. So it solves a huge problem of playing tempo for Rogue. So I would put Rogue as an exception in here. But Druid, Warrior, and Paladin are going to be really hurt by the fact that they don't have real board clears.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if you just ended your statement right there, I'm like, no, rogues are definitely different, right?
Yeah.
Just based on the way that they play and stuff, like, um, it's not only the dagger, but sort of what they're capable of doing with the class cards. Like they're not in as much trouble, and I would even say that rogues might be in a pretty decent spot next expansion,
Oh yeah.
or
Well, I
not
mean, we'll go
expansion.
class by class after this.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
doing like big meta considerations right now
Yep,
to
definitely.
set it up. Okay. So next we look at large removals. It's a spell-based game, right? So we're focusing on board clears and large removals. Warlock and Mage each have 5 to 6 large removals. Like, we're talking about hard removals. We're talking about the polymorphs. We're talking about the blast crystal potions. And you know what else? What's also a hard removal for the Warlock? Doom and Twisting Nether. Like, you can never get a Warlock. Like, you can never be like, ha, I got you, Warlock. They will always have an out. Warlocks are going to be insane. Mages are going to be insane. Because also, what happens when the game drags on a bit longer? Your hero power becomes more important, right? And who has good hero powers? Warlock and Mage. Okay, so who is hurting for large removals? If the game goes on for a bit longer, you're going to be picking bigger cards, right? Like, we normally have like 6 2-drops right now. Now we're only going to have 2. Where are those other 4 cards going? Are they going to 1-drops? No, they're going to go to like size. Your decks are just going to get bigger. And when your decks get bigger, you need more responses to your opponent's threats. And the best response, the most like tempo flipping and card advantage preserving response are these hard removals. And so who doesn't have them? Shaman, I know that's a surprise because Hex is such a good card, but remember, commons are meaningless now. And Shamans only have 1 large removal in their entire kit, which is Hex. So Shaman falls to the very bottom of the list when it comes to hard removals. Whereas right now, you think they're kind of okay at hard removals just because of Hex. They're done. Shamans, Druids, Hunters, and Warriors. Remember how we said Druid, Warrior, and Paladin weren't doing so well on the board clears? Well, Druid and Warrior appears again, and they're not doing so well on the large removals. Druid would be okay, but Recycle's leaving. Keep that in mind. If Recycle were here, Druid would be kind of okay, but they're actually Recycle's leaving. So you just get Naturalize, which is really bad in a card advantage-based meta. Well, it's not really bad. It still lets you tempo out, but you have to start playing a different game with it. Like, it's still going to be a very powerful card. And then they have Mulch, and that's kind of it. But yeah, Shamans have nothing. Warriors have nothing. Crush is leaving the meta, right? That's like the one hard removal Warriors had, except Execute. And that's going. I guess you can count Brawl. I haven't been counting Brawl for Warriors, but maybe you can count Brawl. That's still only 1 to 2. And Hunters, right? Deadly Shot. Oh, they have a hard removal. 1, it's only sort of a hard removal, and 2, it's a common card, so it's not actually going to be seen all that frequently. So you just have Hunter's Mark. And again, these are just bad stuff is happening to these classes. Okay, so again, I want to point out Druid and Warrior are at the bottom of both lists. And those are the 2 classes. I don't care who you ask. They're going to say either Warrior or Druid as the worst class right now. And they're about to get worse just on pure meta considerations. And who's going to get better? Warlock and Mage. They're still at the top of both of these lists. The meta is going to shift in favor of Warlock and Mage. It's going to shift against Warrior and Druid. Is that a desirable outcome?
I don't know, man, but it's the way that we're going.
That's what Blizzard wants.
At least until the next expansion. Yeah.
This is what I mean by, like, Blizzard has not done what we just did right here. This entire podcast, Blizzard didn't do this. And it's not like we took a million years beforehand to set it up. It literally took me like a half hour to outline this and another half hour to discuss it with Merps before this. Like, this is not rocket science. This is stuff that's guaranteed to happen, that any person who knows what to do with the arena and actually sat down and decided to think about it will come to. So, Blizzard should know full well what is happening here. This is the meta and how it shifts in the arena. This is not the constructed meta. It is not that hard to predict. We have correctly predicted the meta every single time since we started doing it back in like GVG, right? Because arena moves in inches. It's very easy to predict the meta. Like, we may be wrong, and to the extent that we are wrong, it's usually because of offering odds, and that's not something we can control. If the offering odds were what we thought they were, it would, we would be right. So this is just like Blizzard should be able to do this, and I don't know if they can't, or they're just not willing to, or if someone can there and they're just not listening to the guy. I don't know, but or they just want these results. But these seem like very negative results to me that they shouldn't want. Anyway, moving on. Something else about this answer and response meta, which is that your opponent plays something, you have a lot of spells, so you can always respond to it. And at the point in which you run out of responses, sorry, not answer response, threat and response. At the point in which you run out of responses, you lose. Because your opponent now has like a 4-stack back, so you can't deal with it. And so, yeah, you start pushing face and you may win, but you have like a 25% chance to win now if you run out of responses. So in this meta, on-board abilities, like abilities that trigger multiple times on the board, like Murloc Knight or Cult Master, where you play it, you get value out of it, but its real value comes from living a turn, right? Like, especially Murloc Knight, where you're only going to get 1 round of value the first time. With Cult Master, you can still set up a board and get a whole ton of value on 1 turn, and then you don't really care if it gets removed. But, like, think back in Classic. Cult Master was almost always removed after 1 turn, because everyone had the spells to deal with it. That's going to be the case again. Cult Master is going to live for 1 turn. On the other hand, Cult Master is potentially even stronger now, because to the extent that you could put annoying stuff on the board, your opponent's actually not going to remove it. Because your opponent knows that they only have a certain number of responses, and they're only going to remove threats. And your 2/2s on the board are not threats. So they will actually like hang around much more frequently, because your opponent doesn't have a board to remove your board with if you choose to go the board route. So it's a little unclear about Cult Master, but something like Murloc Knight is very clear cut. Like, Murloc Knight is going to suck more than it does now. And any other card that has an ability that can only be triggered once, which is a lot of like the Inspire cards. What else is going to be worse? Taunts are going to be worse. Why? Because your opponent can remove them. And when your opponent removes them, a lot of bad things happen. Because the good part about taunts is that you rely on them, right? You rely on them to like block for your team. You rely on them to prevent face damage getting dealt to you. When that goes away, what are you going to do? You'd rather heal. You can't rely on taunts anymore. And who really relies on taunts? Who has a lot of taunts?
Seems like these 2 classes that aren't doing so hot.
Right? Druid was the original taunt class, and then Warriors took up the mantle by Blizzard, and now Blizzard's screwing them over, along with the other ways they're screwing these 2 classes over.
Yeah. And the reason, like, when Adukta talks about relying on taunts, just think back how many times, for example, did they have a good trade, but then you dropped a Fen Creeper and wanted to flip it, right? So, for example, as a warrior, like, you have a 2/3 on the board. They play, and on their side they have like a 4/3, and you play Fen Creeper, and obviously you're not going to attack it, right? And you're counting on that. You could have done something else. You could have maybe played like I don't know, a Silverhand Knight and just given up like the good trade, but instead you're relying on the Fen Creeper, the taunt, to give you the good trade. And when you can't rely on that, and when they sort of bust your expectations and hard remove that, suddenly it's like doubly bad, right? You might as well have just played something else and given up that free trade.
Right? Look at this Bloodhoof Brave. See how sad it is? Looks very, very sad right now, because it was a very good card. 65 on the tier list. That's huge. That's above Dark Iron Dwarf. That's almost a Piloted Shredder. It's not going to do the same for it anymore. And the worst part is, remember, if your opponent plays a giant taunt as the warrior or the druid, you can't even get rid of it, because you don't have hard removals. So they're in a place where their tools are being hard countered, and their opponent's equal tools, to the extent that their opponent has them, they can't do anything about. Like, it's so bad. Alright, death rattles are going to be better again, just because if removals are everywhere, having something that works when it gets removed is going to be good. Especially board clears and things like that. Divine Shield, same thing.
Yeah.
Card draw will be amazing again, because you can't have, like we said before, right, with the playability stuff, you can't have too many stuff over 7 mana. You can't. It's too awkward. You'll like spend too many turns doing nothing. You won't be able to have choices in terms of what you play, which makes card draw cards very useful, because they give you the card advantage while still letting you like put something on the board, so that you can make your plays. Like, they extend the amount of options you have. And so they're going to be really good for this meta. Kind of like how they were before, right? Like, Azure Drake is going to be a really good card again. We've been hating on Azure Drake for like almost a year now, and people are like, why? And it's because it wasn't that good, but it's about to be good again.
Well, it's about to be good, and then it's about to go into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's right. It's about to go. I didn't even think about the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
That's right. It's about to go into the Hall of Fame. Okay, fine. Um, but you know who has a lot of card draw?
Warlocks.
Warlocks have a hero power that card draws. Who else has a lot of card
Yep.
draw? Mages.
Mages.
Mages have the
Yeah.
second most card draw. Wonder what we know about those two classes. Are they like the best or the worst classes right now?
I'm not good enough in the arena to tell you that.
Ah, right, right. But
Yeah.
apparently Blizzard needs to buff these guys, and it's cool. It's cool. It's just the direction they want the meta to go. Like I said, right? Like whoever is crafting this meta, because they've crafted this meta, they very specifically did things to create this meta. They did not think this through. If they cared about balance or skill, if they only care about responding to what people say they want, or if they only care about creating weird random experiences, fun random experiences, then they did a good job. Okay, so once again, we covered this before, but like high-low split stat minions will be really amazing again. The Silverhand Knight. So like split stat minions where you have two types of stats on the board. Because of all the removals, it's harder to remove a split stat minion. They kind of got down a little bit when removals were less common, and because they're more easily attacked by minions on the board. But remember, the power is shifting to spells now rather than minions on the board, so they're going to be good again. And on the other hand, high attack, low health minions are going to be worse again because if you can remove them with a lower amount of spell commitment, right? If you can like frostbolt something to death, who cares if it has 8 attack? That's more valuable when your opponent doesn't have a whole lot of frostbolts. It's crap if your opponent has a whole lot of frostbolts.
Sorry, Worgen Greaser.
You were good. I mean, sorry, you were okay.
You
Now
were
you're
okay.
awful. And in the same way, right? If you have like Oasis Snapjaw, it's going to be pretty hard to remove now. So you're at least guaranteed that it'll stay on the board. Whereas before, you didn't need Oasis Snapjaw to stay on the board. A Yeti probably would have stayed on the board. So now the Oasis Snapjaw actually gets that little bit of extra value. And also attack buffs are weaker. Just anything that buffs attack, you don't have to worry about Balance Chosen anymore. But like Paladins, think like Blessing of Kings, think Seal of Champs, because once you buff it, the good part is it stays on the board, and now you have this giant attack minion with low health. Well, now you have a giant attack minion with low health on the board, and that's going to get removed immediately. So this is how the meta is shifting. Keep these considerations in mind. Again, we said this before. The tier list is not going to be updated immediately for this. This is like way too much stuff, and it's happening way too fast, and we got no notice of it. So it'll probably be ready like 2 weeks from now. And I want to play in this meta first. Like so many things are changing. I really need to like get some on the ground action in there before I adjust everything. But you should adjust it in your head. Okay, now the fun stuff. Let's go over how each particular class is going to do in the new meta.
Finally, after 2 hours, we're getting into the real meat of the
Right?
discussion.
This is what people care about. What class is the best? We've kind of already, settled it, and Warlock and Mage are going to be doing pretty well. But that's just meta considerations. Now we can look at what specific cards are leaving and what specific cards are entering. This is a good way to look at the general power of the cards of a class, but classes are determined as much by the meta they're in as these kinds of card in, card out kind of considerations. So if you have like a bad meta for a warrior, the warrior can have insane cards. It's not going to do too well. It's going to do okay. So let's go over this. And on the other hand, if you have like bad cards and you have a bad meta, you're going to suck like crazy. Like that's kind of what happened to the warrior back in TGT. Okay, let's go over first the classes in which I think a lot of good cards are coming in. And so we're going to cover these cards so you can know to watch out for these cards. Remember, even epics are now going to be in the meta. You're going to see them frequently. So we're going to cover all this stuff. And remember, you're going to have to start playing around cards now. So these are things to keep in mind. Okay, you want to start on this? Because I've been talking for a long time.
No, I don't. Do it, man. You got this.
Hunter. Okay. The key card that's leaving the meta is Glaivezuka. It is like the best Hunter common card. It is a GVG card. It will no longer be in the meta. Hooray. But it was a really good card for Hunter, partly because there was a 2-drop meta and a 1-drop meta. And now that there isn't, it's not even that great of a card anymore. It's still good, but anyway, it's leaving. But it's the only card of importance that's leaving. On the other hand, cards that are either rare or epic, and so they have their offering rates significantly improved, are Savannah Highmane. You want to comment on Savannah Highmane? You want to just like give a one-liner on each of these cards? As
Thumbs up, good card.
Okay, Eaglehorn Bow.
Thumbs up, good card.
All right. Also, a 3-drop that takes care of 4 3s.
Basically, look, a weapon is leaving. It's a good thing that Eaglehorn Bow is getting an increased offering rate, but hunters have been starving for weapons, right?
Yep.
Like the fact that Glaive Zuka is leaving, it's really disappointing because Glaive Zuka is a card that just wins them the game on turn 2, potentially, and that's
Not
something
anymore.
and it's. They don't have it, and it's kind of disappointing. But it is good that they are getting sort of increased offering rate to Eaglehorn Bow and a lot of other class cards that have initiative, right?
Now remember, this will pretty much make up for Glaive Zuka in terms of offering odds, all by itself.
Yeah, definitely, just by itself. But then again, it is it's just not as strong as Glaive Zuka, right?
Well, for this meta, it is very strong because there's a lot of 4 3s that are coming out when this card is coming out.
It's very true. Very
so
true.
It's very well suited for the meta.
All right.
Dispatch Kodo.
Dispatch Kodo, pretty good. I mean, it's a keeper. It's an unnerfed keeper, right? And because we're seeing, a smaller card pool, you have more chances to get buffs on this guy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. You have more chances at the zipliner.
Yeah.
Zip gunner. Sorry.
You always call it the zipliner, man.
Yeah.
But you have more chances to buff it, and you have better chances to get, sort of inside beast synergy, right? So this guy will get more buffs, and it will give more synergy as well because it's a beast. So
okay,
becomes better.
Explosive Shot.
Not much to say about it. Just really good removal. Tough to play around it before, but now you can definitely think about it, right? It's just premium removal.
You need to think about it.
Yeah.
It's offered more often than a normal card because it's a spell and it's a class card. You're going to see it all the time. You are going to have to play around this card all the time. Positioning matters. Ooh, that felt weird to say. Okay. Infested Wolf. Again, good card. Nothing really to say about it.
Nothing to say about it.
Call of the Wild.
Call of the Wild.
Call of the Wild.
Now it is not insane anymore for you to look at your opponent's card. Remember that it's like, hey, they haven't played that since turn 3, and it's like turn 7 or turn 8. It's not crazy for you to think maybe I need to deal with turn 9 Call of the Wild.
Oh, Call of the Wild.
Because that card is an instant pick, right? But before, like we said, epics were not part of the rotation. They just weren't. They were sprinkled in with some decks every now and again, and a lot of times you just see really bad epic cards. But with the hugely increased percent chance to grab epics now, a lot of hunters are going to have Call of the Wild because it's just an insta pick, and they're going to have a lot more epics.
Yep. Rat Pack is also going to be a thing. It's the same thing as the Kodo, right? You can buff it more often, but otherwise it's just a good card to have. It's also a tricky 3-drop. Your opponent plays a 3-2. What do? You play a Rat Pack, not a 4-3. It's a very good card to have.
2/1-1s.
Yep. It's a very good card to have on curve in the new meta. Okay. Now we get to the real key here of how the hunter is going to change. Because we're not just talking about which cards are good or which cards are bad. We're talking about how the hunter fundamentally changes. How each of these class will fundamentally change in this new meta. Gladiator's Longbow. Was it epic? You never saw it before. Boom, now you have it. Pyroblast. That's what the hunter has now. A Pyroblast that can also be changed for card advantage. And that's only 7 mana.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how hunters needed more weapons, right? More weapons. A lot more weapons. 1,000 times, 10 times the amount of weapons for the
One thousand
gladiators.
percent
1000% for
or
gladiators longbow.
10 times.
All right, that's an
1,000
insane
times.
buff for the hunter. This is an insane buff for the hunter that you will actually be able to see gladiators longbow now and then in the arena.
Yeah.
And going on to this, coming off of this, also you will have a piranha launcher, which is not quite a pyroblast, but it's still 8 damage to the face eventually, and
Really
it keeps
annoying.
generating 1/1s, which again,
Yeah.
as we said, these are annoying to deal with. Your opponent doesn't really have things to remove these little stuff. They have to keep using board clears. And if you're a hunter, you've probably been board cleared a number of times already. So your opponent will need to have even more board clears once you get a piranha launcher out. So again, hunters' weapon problems are much less in this new meta than in the old meta. Even though Glyvzuka is leaving, and Glyvzuka was the best weapon.
Yeah. So it definitely hurts, right? But hunters, hunters still have some decent 1-drops. They still have some decent 2-drops, and like they stand a pretty decent chance of curving out still. Relative to other classes, and they have a lot of these cards that are just they have initiative, they're good. And they have these big weapons, to give them a fighting chance.
And what
right?
you want to look at for the hunter especially is you want to look at its 2-drops, because this is like a up-tempo kind of like class, right? So the 2-drop meta is gone, but look at the hunter. Steam Weedle Sniper's still going to be around, I think. That's not GVG, is it? Anyway, Steam Weedle Sniper's going to be around. You don't really want to play it, but as a hunter, you do need 2-drops. You can't just avoid it. King's Elic is going to be around. Freezing Trap is going to be around. It will now freeze not a 2-drop, but a 3-drop, even if you play it on turn 2. How great is that?
It is GVG.
Huh? Oh, that is GVG? Okay, fine. But King's Elic is going to be around. Freezing Trap is going to be around. Trog Beast Rager is going to be around. That's a 3-2. That's good.
Yep.
Kindly Grandmother is a 3-2. This is good. Like, you actually have the potential to still have a 2-drop curve as the hunter, which you don't for most classes anymore, as we've kind of gone over. So it's a thing, especially because Hunter Secrets also cost 2 mana. Like, Hunter is in a rare position where you still draft 1, 2, 3, 4, and you try to go for it. And now you have these big finishers. And remember, your opponents are skipping their turn 2. So you get to push as the Hunter. More than ever before, you get to push, and your opponents can't defend themselves as well.
Yeah.
Your problem, of course, is that you don't have large removals. So whenever your opponent plays a large taunt, you're like, crap, what am I going to do? My whole board is dead. So basically, your opponent can use board clears, or they can use large taunts, and that acts as a board clear.
Yeah, the fact that spells are increased is not, like, that's one part that's not great, right? Yeah.
Because what is a spell? A spell not only destroys a minion, but also reduces 1 turn of when the minion would have damaged your face.
Because if your opponent plays very powerful minions that can even trade, or sometimes go trade up, or sometimes still survive the hit, as long as you get that initial hit in with the hunter, and then you get to Gladiator's longbow and just hit him to the face twice, you probably win, right? But if they are just playing spells and eliminating that and sort of preventing that 10, 12, damage that you could have gotten to their face, then you never get there. You never get there with a longbow, and you just sort of putter out in the end game.
So remember, your opponents will probably have 1 more board clear than they used to have. It's not. It's a lot. It matters, right? But it's not like they can repeatedly board clear you. They can't. They're still limited to the amount of answers that they have. And as the hunter, you just keep putting out more. You just keep bum rushing them, right? And that works. Or you can go for a later game, mid-game kind of push thing, but then you're kind of in danger. You need the game to go on long enough for you to hero power them down in that case. So there's different ways to play the hunter, but overall, I think hunter's going to be okay in this meta. They have a lot of good cards that are coming in, right? And only 1 good card leaving. A lot of good cards with increased offering rates. One of the issues with Hunter is always that there are no good class cards that you get, because their common cards are not terribly great. But their epic cards and their rare cards were always good. And so this is a pretty big buff for the Hunter's card pool. And the meta itself is like give and take on the Hunter, right? Depending on what class you're facing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the Hunter. Let's go with Shaman. Well, again, I'm going to go over the cards, and Merps will give a brief eulogy or introduction to the card. Whirling Zap-O-Matic, gone.
Whirling Zap-O-Matic, gone. Look, it's a premium 2-drop, right? Premium 2-drops that like can... It's one of those 2-drops that gives you the stats you want in the early game and has additional functions or additional power in the late game, right? So those are things that you really want to keep. And unfortunately, Shaman is sort of losing that. But, it's not like the most, it's not like a pure power card that I guess you're like that sad about losing.
Yep. Okay. Power Mace.
Oh, God. All right. This one is sad.
Right?
This one is sad. Power Mace is one of the best cards that Shaman has.
Yeah.
It's just... because you're normally happy with just a 3 mana for a 3/2 weapon.
We were talking about Eagle Horn Bow, right? Everything we said about Eagle Horn Bow applies.
Right.
But like we lost it.
With Power Mace, like it's not that hard to on the second turn just drop a mech and then get that 2/2 buff, right? And you just win the game. That's way too much value.
Yep.
So Shamans are definitely going to miss both of these cards. A 2-drop that has additional value, and Power Mace, just one of the best weapons, even in the game. It's just a really, really freaking good.
Yep. Maelstrom Portal.
So, no. These are the cards that are upped.
Yep. Now we're reaching cards that are upped. Sorry.
So, basically, we say goodbye to Whirling Zap, and we say goodbye to Power Mace, and then we say, we're going to see these cards more often. So, Maelstrom Portal goes up. I hate this card. It's so annoying. Right.
By the way, when I say we say goodbye to the cards, I'm not covering every card. I'm just covering the ones that I deem like actually important. And
right. Oh yeah. We're limiting it to like the good cards.
Yeah.
So what are sort of important cards that we're going to see an increase in? Maelstrom Portal. This card just does a little bit too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hate the fact that Shamans have access to a spell totem. And that 1-drop that they get with all of the options that Shaman has with just anything on the board, it's really annoying. And sometimes it's just very good. Like, it's a Selfless Hero or, it's like a Lightforge.
We don't have to talk about why this is good. Let's focus this on why this is good in the meta, right? It's a board clear. It destroys like stuff that hunters may do. And in this meta, it's an anti-aggro device for whatever decks are going to play aggro. But if a lot of decks don't play aggro, you're sitting there and you can't do much with this card, right? So we know it's a good card. You could look at its score to see if it's good. It's still good, but it's a board clear. It's treated as a board clear.
Yeah.
Board clears we don't have to do a card good bad for like each of these. That'll take way too long.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, Lightning Storm.
I'm gonna be really frustrated. This thing is, it's frustrating for the user and for the person getting stormed on, and but now you have to play around it.
Yeah, it's RNG.
100% have to play around it.
It's RNG, and you have to play around it for like 3 health too, and you have to play around. Maybe they get a lucky totem. Like it's awful. Why is this card not 50% reduced?
It should be, man.
It should be. Jade Claws.
Yeah, damn it.
I'm gonna use this actually to launch on the bigger discussion, which is that Jade.
Yeah,
Jade classes get an inherent bonus in this meta. Why? Because the offering bonus is not going away from what Ixar seems to suggest. If it does go away, discard everything we're about to say. But because Jade is a network synergy, as we talked about before, any increases in its offering rates will make it, significantly more powerful. Shaman was already fine with Jade because it has Jade Lightning, which is a pretty good card that gives a Jade Golem, and then it also has Jade Chieftain, which is okay as well, right? Like, you don't really want it, but like, it's not a horrible card to have. Then you add one of the best cards for the Shaman ever. This is like, it's literally only 4 points off of the top card, which is Hex. And it gives a Jade Golem. And it is now in the meta. Very much in the meta. It's a rare card, which means it gets seen as often as a common card. And so, Jade everywhere for Shaman. Also, it deals 2 damage to the 3/2s in case your opponent has it. And if your opponent doesn't have it and just plays it 4-3, guess what that 1/1 on the board's doing?
Wow, right?
It's stupid. On the downside, it is a 2-drop, and you don't necessarily want 2 drops, but still, like, whatever, right? Like, it's too powerful. You don't care. And I want to point out that there are no more, like, the only 2-drop after Rolling Zap goes away is Eternal Sentinel, which is still an epic card. And the rest are like, Jade Claws and Stormforge actually play on turn 2, but then you still have to play another 2-mana card, so they're really more like 3 drops. So, overall, Shaman is not going to curve out. It's not like Hunter. It's not going aggro.
Yeah.
Okay. Master of Evolution, not much to say. It's good. It's a 4/5 in a land where Yetis are great, right? Like, and then it has an ability on top of it. Feral Spirit.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to see more because of the spells as well. Look, it's going to be fine, especially if the game goes a little bit slower, right? Like, you want split bodies, like you said. Split bodies are good. Taunts, anything to sort of make it annoying for your opponent, it's going to be good. Because Shamans could potentially, like, depending on the draft, you could be very, very control-oriented, right? Like,
exactly.
you have a lot of
Lightning Storms.
Good value cards.
EDs. Wait, do you have EDs? Is Elemental Destruction GVG? Elemental Destruction may be GVG. It's not on my list. I imagine because it is GVG, or I like totally whiffed on it.
I can search it up for you.
Yeah,
it is TGT.
It's TGT. Oh, so we do have Elemental Destruction coming in. That's going to be huge. And okay, so the thing with Feral Spirit is 2/3s are awful, right? We've gone over this. This is going to be like a Noyotron, but like a more intense version of a Noyotron. But it costs way too much mana for what it's worth. The good part is it sets up for really well to soften targets up, because that's what it's doing. It's softening targets up. And then you ED or you Lightning Storm. Okay, so Elemental Destruction is obviously an insane card that needs to have its offering bonus reduced. But Blizzard didn't, because they only care about what people complain about. Okay. Thunderbluff Valiant.
Thunderbluff, great card. You're going to be happy to see it. But once again, it probably won't survive as long as it's been surviving these days because of the increase in spells.
Yep. So you got to get your value while you can, right?
Right.
And I like it because Flame Tongue and Thunderbuff really come together to form a backbone of a way to play Shaman. And the fact that the offering odds for Thunderbluff is raising more than the ones for Flame Tongue is decreasing means you can still do that kind of play style. And you can do them a little more consistently. One of the problems is that it was not a very consistent play style. And now you can. It's only in the short meta. It's going to go away, pretty quickly in 2 months. But in the meantime, Shaman still has its thing going on. So I like that. Earth Elemental.
Woo. With the increase in spells, you're rolling the dice even more, right? These
more
days.
RNG.
But look, it's still a big card. It's a good card, and you're not going to be, you're not going to avoid it just because of the increase in spells. Still very good.
Yep. And Hammer of Twilight to make sure Shamans still have a decent amount of cards.
Yeah. Hammer of Twilight is in really good value, right? You swing once for 4, you swing twice for 4, and you get a 4/2 body. It's a really good value.
Yep, just general good cards that the Shaman's getting. So Shamans didn't lose a lot, it got a lot, and it has a Jade synergy bonus that's like being amped up like crazy because of Jade Claws. And the offering bonus now on Jade Claws being plus 50% to what it was. And if it counts as a spell, then even more so, right? So Rogue right now is like the Jade deck, but Shaman does almost as well. Shaman's going to do better than Rogue now on Jade. And Rogue is going to do better on Jade. And Jade is just going to be better, period. So this is like through and through, it's a pretty big buff for Shaman in this upcoming patch.
Yes.
So where Hunter's going to do fine, Shaman is pretty set. Its only weakness, as we said before, is it doesn't have hard removals anymore. Like, you just get less than 1 hex every draft, which is kind of sad. But you do have like a whole ton of other stuff to make up for it. So, yeah, so like you're going to lose a card every time your opponent plays a large card. You're going to lose an extra card. But that should be fine because you have a lot of tools to which to control the board, and your archetypes are all still functioning. And if the game goes on for longer, your totems are not that bad, right? Like, if your totem is taunting a 2/3 when you play it on turn 2, it doesn't do much. If the same totem played on turn 2 is taunting a 4/3, it got a little more used to it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And if your opponents don't have a lot of little stuff anymore, which is kind of the general trend of things, unless there's certain classes, then it's very hard for them to clear your totems. They need to burn those mass removals. So things are looking up for the Shaman. It's going to be one of the top classes. Well, one of the better classes.
Yeah, one of the better ones. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Druid. What is leaving? Robocub. Not going to say anything about it, except that it is a 2-drop.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention something about 2-drops while we're at it. Robocub is leaving, but Druid of the Saber is still here. Power of the Wild is still here. Darnassus Aspirant is getting an offering bonus. And so Druid is still curving out on 2.
Yes. And also, Beast Druid is more of a thing now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Beast Druid is more of a thing because they got rid of a lot of the other cards, so the offering bonus is going up on Beasts.
Yep.
Living Roots is also still around, and that's a 1-drop. So Druids can really still push, just like a Hunter. It's weird to think about it, but Druids are getting very aggressive. Mech Bearcat is leaving. That's just a big card. And Recycle is leaving, which we're all sad about.
Well, not all sad. You're sad about it.
I'm sad about it. Fine. I like Druid. Okay, what's being upped? This is crazy. What's being upped? This is a card that should not be upped, but Savage Combatant is being upped.
It's pretty freaking good, man. It's also a beast.
It's also a beast.
It's also a beast. So you can copy it with Menagerie Warden. You can Mark of Yasharaj it. Or, you can just get that free 3 damage hero power. It's pretty ridiculous. Like, this is something that Druids aren't still going to be in a good spot, but the increased offering rate to Savage Combatant definitely helps out.
Yeah, but remember, Savage Combatant used to be really good because it stayed around. It's not going to stay around anymore. It only has 4 health.
Right.
So it's not, amazing, right? Darnassus Aspirant is getting raised. But remember what sucks? 2/3 suck. So yeah, it's obviously good to ramp it, and you want to ramp it, and it's all good and all that, but, it's not as good as it was.
It's not as good, but what it does help out, if you have that 4, for example, so even if they eat it for free, your 4 should eat their 3 for free.
Yeah, exactly. Right? But they also have more small removals to possibly just remove it.
Yeah.
But you're fine, right? If you put a 2-drop and they remove your 2-drop, you're okay.
Yeah,
you'll take that, especially with all your 4/3s that eat the same removal. So that's a good thing. But let's go to Ancient of War.
Really good. You still have that fear, right? With the increase in spells, but Ancient of War, it does something. It's not just like a War Golem that doesn't do anything on the board. Supposedly it taunts, and it should be able to affect the board in a big way.
Yep, Mulch.
Really interesting, right? Really interesting, because even when Druids didn't really have hard removal, and because they had it was just naturalized, right, as common, and then they had Recycle as a rare, so you saw sometimes, but it's really clunky, right?
Yeah. Mulch is only 3 mana, and it basically saps the minion and then transforms the minion into a random other minion.
Right. So if you're mulching a Sunwalker, the chance that they're gonna get something better than a Sunwalker is so small. Yeah. Right. It's so small. They're probably getting a 3 mana 4/3 or something, right? So increased offering rate to mulch just makes Druids just a little bit different in terms of how you play against them.
It makes because Druid is in it's in a really bad place right now because you can't do this kind of stuff very consistently. You still can. You're still one of the lowest hard removals, but you're now being brought in line with other classes that have trouble removing things. Right now, Druid is almost uniquely bad. So they actually get I guess not really a huge increase because they also have recycling leaving the meta, but mulch is better, and so depending on how you draft and what you get offered, you could make it viable. But the real key card here, I'm going to talk about this, is Starfall. Starfall deals 5 damage to a minion or 2 damage to all minions at its 5 mana. This is such a key card for the Druid in this new meta, because you need to counter the people who do decide to play 2s and 1s and whatever. And if they do, it's all going to have 2 health, because 3 2s are way better than 2 3s. So Starfall is perfect for countering aggro. And it's still a useful card against what I'm going to call normal decks. If you have a Consecration, it's going to end up being a cleave. It's going to end up being a 4-mana cleave at some point. Because you're facing decks that just don't spread out. Because most decks are no longer going to spread out because your turns don't start until 3. So where Consecration used to do things like wreck aggro because everybody had 2-drops and whatever, well, you don't have as many 2-drops. Consecration doesn't do as much. So this 2 damage to all enemy minions doesn't do as much, but Starfall saves it. So if you're really facing like a normal kind of deck, you just use it to deal 5 damage and you're happy with the fact that it's a removal.
Yep.
Like, this becomes so much better than Consecration for this type of meta. Not that Consecration is bad, right? Keep in mind 3 2s are still the meta, but like this flexibility is going to be like very key for the Druid. And of course, Druid is also a Jade class. Not that it's a good Jade class, but it is a Jade class, and you can now get away with ramping at 3 more so than before because the game starts a little later. So it's a thing. It's a slight boost. So it sounds like Druid also got a lot of stuff, and it didn't lose all that much stuff. And you may think that Druid may be like okay in the meta, but it's not really okay.
No. Well, it was in a terrible spot, right, already. And these changes, I think it's, if it is a positive, it's a small positive. And, them losing Robocub and sort of them just losing early game curve cards, it definitely, you can't say Druid is in a much stronger spot. If they are stronger, it's like a tiny bit.
It's the meta's turning so hard against them that even though the cards are good, that they're getting like additional offering rates to, and the ones they're losing aren't like all that important, the meta is still so against what the Druid needs to do. Like, when you take a Druid, and I'm pimping the fact that Druids can curve out on 2 and go aggressive, this is not a good meta for the Druid.
Yeah.
Like, when that's like a thing you should really consider when you're drafting, you're kind of like already on the ropes on this one. So that's Druid. But the point I'm going to try to make with this is that there are some things going for it. The meta is still tilted against it, but it's getting some good cards. And we're going to contrast this later on with the Warrior, where, oh my god, the Warrior. As if it wasn't the worst class already by like a mile compared to other classes.
Oh gosh. Well, we're going to save the worst for last.
Yeah, Arena Warriors matter. Coming back up.
Yep. All right.
In all seriousness, the Warriors going to be like as bad as it used to be.
Look, Jade Druids, huh? Yeah.
Jade Druids better now. I love Jade Druids. I'm going to be happy like crafting Jade Druids. And I'm going to have the fun that is not competitive and won't win me games. Okay. Rogue. Gone. Sabotage. Sabotage is an insane card that should always be gone. I don't mind it being gone, but yes, it hurts Rogue a lot, right?
Yeah, it's just a very, very good card.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Ogre Ninja. Again,
Meh.
I don't miss it. Doesn't really matter too much.
And guys, remember, we're just going through cards that sort of pass a certain threshold.
Yeah.
Right. We're not going through every single card. I think like Nirbar Ambusher or something is also leaving, but
yeah, I don't really care about Nirbar Ambusher.
But so basically, the important thing is Rogue is losing Sabotage, but other than that, they're not losing that
Sabotage
much.
Is epic. You never had Sabotage to lose. Is kind of
right. You were never just like, oh, but all my decks that went 12 had Sabotage. Like, if you're making that statement, you probably didn't get many 12s with Rogue in the first place.
But remember what Rogues got. Remember how I was promoting how to play Rogues even now in this meta, which is to never take 2-drops. You just use your hero power as 2. It lets you build a bigger deck. And you're totally okay with it because you get your tempo from it. And you don't care about the health loss at that point. So Rogue is getting more Jade, right? Because your offering rates are going up on like pretty much every normal card. And because you're getting rid of cards from the meta. And you're getting 2-drop hero power because no one's going to have 2-drops, but you can still have a 2-drop. So you're tempoing ahead of most, like half the time compared to your opponents. You just tempo ahead. And when you're not tempoing ahead, they're dropping 3 2s, which you can kill with 2 hits of your weapon.
Yep.
So Rogues are in a very good place meta-wise. and it's losing almost nothing. And it's getting really
Oh my
some
God.
things, but really just
Yeah.
this one card is what it's getting.
Well, okay. First of all, let's just talk about it. They are getting an increase to Dark Iron Skulkers, and I did like napkin math. So assuming that you always pick Dark Iron Skulker, you're getting close to 2 Skulkers per deck now, right?
No.
No, is it like 1.6 or 1.7?
No.
Okay, my math is wrong apparently then.
It's like
But
0.75.
it's only 0.75 for each deck.
Yes.
Huh. So how many rares do you have?
Huh?
Like total, how many rares do you have per deck?
I don't know, but your chance of getting offer this is sorry, something like 0.75.
Don't die, don't die. We still have a while to go, man.
Okay. Hang on
Hold
until the end of the
yourself
Lightforge. But yeah, it's like 0.75. But like before this, it was like 0.25, right?
Yeah.
So it's still getting a huge raise in between the rarity and in the rarity adjust.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, sorry, no, it's not even. Sorry. What am I talking about? It's not even 0.75. It's still less than 0.5.
Okay.
But it is rising. It is getting a bonus to it.
Right. So Dark Iron Skulker, you're gonna see much more often. What's also getting upped, and I think this is really crucial. Undercity Huckster,
Yep.
which is if everyone's drafting 3/2s, you want the 2/2 that trades with it and gives you a card, right?
Yep.
And it gives you a class card,
Yep.
which is really, really freaking good.
And you know how great loot hoarders used to be back in the day? They're still great now.
They're still really, really good.
So yeah, Undercity Huckster, huge.
Next, Perdition's Blade.
Oh yeah.
Kills all the 3/2s. Kills basically 3/2s, man. Really, really freaking good card, and you're gonna get an increase in that.
And it gets used in the late game pretty well
Yep.
too, because of the combo thing. So it's a card we've always rated really insanely highly. In fact, it's like the second highest rated card in Rogue right now after Dark Iron Skulker, and they're both getting upped. So Rogue is getting kind of a windfall here in terms of everything lining up in its favor. And Lotus Assassins is another card. It's a very good card. It's going to get increase in offering rate. And we're not mentioning this, but like all the goons, the MSG cards that discover another card that are rare, they're all getting bonuses too. But every class gets them, so they kind of cancel out.
Yeah.
So we're just not going to talk about them. But keep in mind, you're also going to see more of those cards. So yeah, this is going to be pretty serious buff to rogues. Like, when the next meta comes, rogues are going to be right there at the top with Mage and Warlock. And part of the reason it's going to be there at the very top is because Mages and Warlocks actually don't come out, and we're going to go over them next, Mage and then Warlock. They don't actually come out that ahead when it comes to these the card removals. They actually lose a lot when GVG leaves.
Yeah.
Like, Mages, first of all, lose half of a Flame Strike, because Blizzard decided it would lose half a Flame Strike. And that's pretty huge because we all know how great Flame Strike is.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's just all you have to know about that, right? You lose half a Flame Strike. That's a nerf to Mage. It also loses, and I think people are underrating the effect of this, but like Flame Cannon.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know how it can be understated how important Flame Cannon is. It was the other Frostbolt, and you're losing half of it because you no longer have Flame Cannon. So you could up your Frostbolt offering rate all you want. It's not going to give Mages more Frostbolts. I mean, it will give them literally more Frostbolts, but by taking Flame Cannon away, its early removals will be the same as it is right now. It's not actually getting a bonus.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All the other classes are getting a bonus to their current ability to remove small things. Mages are not.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, I don't know. There's so many changes. This is part of the reason why I'm surprised that they're implementing so many things at once, right?
Yeah. And that's also part of the reason why I think it doesn't really matter, and this is all going to be like a huge hot mess for these 2 months. Like, even if they like thought this through like we did, it was probably still going to be things they couldn't foresee. But the fact that they're just doing all of this and nothing seems to connect, and a lot of them seem really just poorly thought out from a consistency perspective.
Yeah.
Like, it's just gonna be a mess. But But that's fine if they fix it quickly, right? Like, that's why Blizzard still gets the participation award, because you will then improve, hopefully, and go down this path, and then the next iteration will be, actually, like, good and require some skill and all that stuff. Okay, but in terms of what the mages got, so they lost a lot of things. They got some things, too. They got Babbling Book increase, that's good. They got Blizzard increase, that's pretty clutch. Fallen Hero increase, which is very important, because they still have Sorceress Apprentice, and they still have Medivh's Valet. So, Mage can actually go aggressive. You don't think of mages going aggressive, but keep in mind Fireball is going up again, and Fireball was one of the clutch things for going aggressive, and keep in mind Pyroblast is getting an increase in offering bonus.
You're actually going to see Pyroblast.
You're actually going to see Pyroblast in the meta, and keep in mind that mages have all this offering bonus now to all of their like large removals, which is perfect for an aggressive deck.
Yep.
So mages are going to be able to go aggressive better than they used to be able to go. And remember, your opponents are the ones not curving out on 2.
Yeah.
And you could, if you just choose to draft a deck like that. So, Hunters, Druids, and Mage can successfully curve out with minions on 2. Rogues can use a hero power as a proxy, but they do take some face damage to it. Like, this is all very, very important. And when I say you can curve out on 2, I don't mean, like, if you try to draft for a curve, you'll get it every draft. I mean, like, you can get 5/2 drops, maybe. Like, that's what I mean by you can curve out. Like, it's possible. For a class like a Shaman or a Rogue trying to draft 2 drops, it's impossible. It will happen, like, 5 to 10% of the times you try to draft a curve. Don't do it. And by that, I mean, like, you'll get 2 3s maybe. I don't know, but it doesn't do much. Okay, so mages also get Forbidden Flame offering bonus, which is a large removal, and possibly a small removal. Something there. But that's mage, and so you can see mage didn't get a lot, and it lost significant things. So the meta is shifting in favor of the mage, but it's going to be held in check by the fact that it's really going to be hurt a lot by its card quality.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just going to run away with everything.
Yeah. And when you look at a mage, you may think, well, mage will play more reactively. Why? Because they have, Blizzards now and Forbidden Flames and Fallen Heroes, but they're missing Flame Cannons and Flame Strikes. They'll play the exact same. If anything, they get to go more aggressive because they've always had the tools to do both, but now you're removing everyone else's tools to actually curve out on 2.
Yep.
So mages are still very flexible. Like, I actually like the direction that mage is going. Again, my problem is not that they're reducing Flame Strike offering rate by 50%. Which I don't think it's needed. But my problem is that they're not doing it for everything else. It should be everything or nothing. Okay, Warlocks. The current bane of the arena, according to most people. What is gone?
All right, so no more Dark Bomb, right?
Yes, go down the list. They're losing so many things.
Yeah, all right, yeah. Let's just address, like, sort of their big... The big cards that they're losing. They're losing Dark Bomb.
Huge.
Yeah. They're losing Floating Watcher. It's a decent card.
It would be better in this meta than it is in the current meta, right? In this coming meta. Yeah. So it's kind of sad to lose it then.
They're losing your favorite card, Mistress of Pain.
Again, it's a 2-mana card that can pretty much function as a 2-drop. This is pretty bad.
And it was so good in today's meta with a Blood Fury Potion, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So... Sorry, Mistress of Pain gone. Implosion is gone, to the delight or detriment of everyone involved.
To the delight of everyone involved.
Void Caller is gone.
But by the way, Implosion is one of, like, the best cards.
Oh, yeah.
Like, literally, it's our 3rd rated card below Shadow Flame and Doom. It's the only one that's not a huge board clear. So leaving is a huge impact on the Warlock.
Right. Void Caller is leaving, eliminating a just win now card, right? Yeah. That was one of, like, what was a just win now sort of condition for the Warlock? Void Caller into, like, Doom Guard.
Plus a lot of demons, right? Because
the
problem with Void Caller is that it's always been around and it was always kind of a problem, but not really, because there were a lot of good demon synergies. Yeah. But MSG added, like, very good demon synergies.
Too many demon synergies.
And all at once. And so the fact that Void Caller was still in there created these demon decks that were literally impossible to win against.
Right. Like, you can't... It was a mistake, I think, to put in Abyssal Enforcer along with, like, Blood Fury Potion, along with Crystal Weaver. Like, it's
Crystal Weaver. Yeah, it was too much.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
removing Void Caller, so keep in mind, 2 very significant demons are gone from the Warlocks, and Mistress of Pain is also gone. And
Right.
Implosion creates demons.
Right. And
Like,
remember, we're having half the rate of Abyssal now. Yes.
yes, oh, right, and Abyssal was half. Like, that. These are crushing losses to the Warlock.
Yes. So, with these, you would think it's like, oh, Warlocks are,
No longer the top class, by far. They're like middling, if not bad.
but they do gain lots of interesting cards, I would say.
I wouldn't
So
call it interesting. I would call it flat out overpowered. The name
they
is
gain a
Shadow
lot
Flame.
of very, very good cards.
Shadow Flame. Okay, I'm not even going to let you finish that sentence because I feel so strongly about this issue. Shadow Flame, rated a 75 on the tier list. Doom, rated a 75 on the tier list. These are literally the 2 top rated cards on the frickin' tier list for Warlock.
Yeah.
Like, people get on us for, like, Abyssal Enforcer, but no, you only complain about Abyssal Enforcers because there's an offering bonus to it, and you see it, like, I think literally 30 times more often than Doom right now. Like, that's why you're complaining about it. And you see it, like, 10 times more than, like, Shadow Flame. Probably not 10 times. Probably more like, I think it's 8 times more than Shadow Flame. Either way, that's why you're not complaining about it. But these are the problem cards. Shadow Flame and Doom are the problem cards to the extent that they're oppressive in the arena when their opponent plays it, and they're not fun to play against.
Yep.
In reality, Shadow Flame's not really fair, but, like, Doom is pretty fair. It's 10 mana, right? Twisting Nether is also going to be seen, because that's an above average card, and it does the same thing. It just blows everything up. So Warlocks, now more than ever, are going to blow everything up, even though Abyssals are going down. It's not like, I know Blizzard thinks, oh, they're not going to blow everything up anymore. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they want Warlocks to blow everything up. They just don't want people to bitch about Abyssal anymore. Either way, Warlocks are blowing more things up now.
Yeah. And blowing things up is very good for the Warlock because it preserves health, right? And even when they, like, Fellfire Potion or Hellfire.
Oh, yeah, I even forgot about Fellfire Potion.
Oh, yeah. But we're seeing an increase in Fellfire Potion and Siphon Soul, all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Bane of Doom, by the way.
Oh.
That's gonna be fun. We're gonna have Bane of, like, instead of Void Card deciding games, we're gonna have Bane of Doom deciding.
Would you
games.
still be able to Bane of Doom out of Floating Watcher or no?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's gonna be like pure standard.
I think it's gonna be pure standard.
Okay.
After that. But yeah, like all of these cards, basically, like so many of these cards that we've listed, even stuff like Doomguard, right? What do? Even when they deal damage to your face, they're preventing additional damage to your face, which is really good for Warlocks in sort of the meta that we predict, right?
Yep.
One in which their hero power can provide lots of value.
They just need to live.
Yeah, they just need to live. They need that life in the late game to change that into card advantage. And even like the last card on the list, Cabal Trafficker, what does it do? It reduces the amount of times that you have to hero power, right?
Yep.
So even Cabal Trafficker saves HP for you.
Yep.
So all of these cards, they sort of like prevent damage to your face. So what you lose in the powerful cards, you gain in other ways, and it sort of shifts the way that Warlock plays. And with the meta changes as well, you'd think that, like, man, you're losing such good cards, like Warlock would go down significantly. They do gain quite a lot, and I'm not exactly sure where they'll end up, but
they'll be good. They'll be good because of this.
Yeah,
you didn't even touch upon this point yet, which is that they have 2-drops, the same as Mage and whatever. They have Dark Peddler, which is now an officially okay 2-drop.
Yeah.
Wrathguard still exists. Tiny Knight of Evil still exists. And Darkshire Librarian. I don't know, does Darkshire Librarian still exist? I think it does. Yeah, Darkshire Librarian still exists. So they can, like, you're not going to curve out the way Warlocks do right now, but they can still play 2s. And the thing with all of those cards, they're all 3/2s. They're all good for Warlock. And Warlock still has some 1-drops. So Warlocks will try to play like they played before, except they'll be even more polarized between the early game and the late game. And they'll be tied together by some like cards in the middle and some like hero powering. It's going to be really interesting to play Warlock going forward. And Imp Gang Boss, again, right? Deals with 3/2s excellently and still trades evenly with a 4/3. Right. You can't. This card is never awful. This card is always good in every meta, and it's going to survive this meta too, especially when you start on 3. Imp Gang Boss becomes so important.
So that's where Warlock is going. They're definitely the most interesting class because what they lose and what they gain, like, God, they're gaining so much AoE.
They're gaining a lot of AoE. They're gaining hard removal. They're gaining late game stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they're gaining late game stuff in a way that prevents them from taking damage so that they can have even more cards. They're suffering in the early game removal department, but relative to other people, they're actually gaining in the early game like tempo, like with small minions kind of game.
Right.
So your warlock's going to flood the board with minions still, or like the new flood, which is to like have a 2-drop
Have
or a
a
one
two
drop,
drop. The flood.
and kind of push on it and force your opponent to kind of respond. And when your opponent responds and or gets on the board, they're going to just blow it all up and try again, and blow it all up and try again, and keep trying to do that. The reach is not very good for the warlock now, but it was never good, right? And now it's like totally awful.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Warlock had a brief reprieve in this meta with Abyssal of like actually having decent reach, but like it was never good before that, and it's gonna go right back there. It's gonna be even worse. And so you're going to have this very like late game card advantage, draw every single one of my cards kind of Warlock, which I like. I like that kind of style of Warlock.
Yep.
So again, going back down the list, Hunter, Druid, Mage, Warlock, all capable of like fudging enough twos to get like 5. Shaman, totally not. Rogue has to hero power.
Yep.
And you may be looking at that and saying, wow, that's so many things that can get 2-drops. What do you mean the 2-drop meta is going away? It sounds like we're still going to have a 2-drop meta. Well, there are 3 classes left. They're the Paladin, the Priest, and the Warrior. And these are painful. These are painful. These are
All right.
painful when it comes to that. And none of them are going to, especially when you talk about Paladin and Priest and how much they need a curve. Like, these are painful. Okay.
Which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about the least painful one, which is the Priest, because they get other stuff.
They do get other stuff. So Priest, right now, if we're talking about where they are in the meta, they're a good class, right? They are. I think a lot of people would put them definitely top 50%, right? And where you would put them specifically, that's up to you. But let's go through the cards that they are going to miss deeply. Like they lose a lot. They're losing Shrinkmeister, like 2 with upside.
Also known as one of their best cards, and the 2-drop.
Yeah, 2-drop. It has upside, and it combos with like Shadow Word Pain. It does a lot for them, right? Like it combos with Potion of Madness, and just it's a good combo card, or it's just a good standalone card to help you get the board as well.
Yep.
They lose Valen's Chosen.
I love that they lose Valen's Chosen. I love it. It was a stupid card, and by stupid I mean like it was a. I don't like Priest gaining attack. It was a well-designed card, I think, because it created a lot of interesting situations Priest needed at the time, and it's not like blatantly overpowered or anything on its face. So I really like the design of the card. Like if I were in a room with the guy who designed this card, I'd be like, "Oh man, you did a good job." But I'm really happy it's gone.
Yeah, Valen's Chosen is gone. Dark Cultist is gone.
Dark Cultist.
Taking away the Priest 3-drop 1-2 punch of Talon Priest or Dark Cultist.
Yeah, and here's the thing: when you don't have 2-drops, you know what Talon Priest is? Not good. I mean, okay, fine, it's good.
Well, it's still really good. Sorry, still really good.
Not game-breakingly good.
Game-winning. Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
These are things. These are things that they're losing, and you're also losing Shadow Boxer. And you're also losing Light Bomb.
You're losing Light Bomb.
Losing Light Bomb is not a huge deal because you never had Light Bomb, but like you're not going to have Light Bomb. That's pretty big.
That's so sad, right? Like you were just about to draft Light Bombs in a decent number of decks, and now you won't have Light Bombs.
No.
Sorry,
it's not, no Light Bombs, never Light Bomb.
So let's talk about what you are gaining.
This is crushing, by the way, because there's also, just so you know, there's no other 2-drops that the Priest has. There's a Mana Geode that's an epic. That's it. So Priests don't have their own 2s. They're not going to curve out on 2s.
And they're losing 2 good 2-drops, right? Shadowboxer and Shrinkmeister. They're losing both of them.
Yep.
So what is increased? They get Akanai Soul Priest on an increased rate, which is good, right? Very good card. Ping.
But also remember, these things die quicker.
Yes.
So this isn't the Inspire kind of like mechanic.
But we've talked about how the 3/5 stat line is even better
Yes,
now,
yes,
right?
exactly.
So that definitely helps. Onyx Bishop, which is very important because before, if you were playing like ones and twos potentially as a priest, you had a chance for to revive those, right?
Hmm.
Now Onyx Bishop, on average, will probably revive a bigger thing for you.
Yep.
Draconid Operative, just a very good card in general, and you have a slightly increased chance of getting the of getting the
Getting
dragon
dragons.
synergy that you want.
Yep.
Yep. Shadow
Oh,
Madness.
also because we haven't talked about it, because I don't focus on synergies. Mech synergies are down crazy. Mech synergies
Oh
are
yeah,
because
yeah,
GVG's
of course.
gone. I hope that would be obvious to people, but in case
It's
it
like,
wasn't,
thinking the mech expansion is leaving. What happens to mechs? Yeah, so Shadow Madness increased offering rate, otherwise known as hugely overcosted Potion of Madness, but still a very good card, right?
yeah, and kind of a semi-board clear.
Yeah. Okay, this next one, I'm gonna hate this. Cabal Shadow Priest is
I will say this: I hated it more before Potion of Madness was a thing.
that's true.
Right now,
That's
if you
true.
make Cabal Shadow Priest Madness, Cabal Shadow Priest the thing now, I don't have to play around Potion of Madness anymore after turn 6. Because the way you play around Potion of Madness is you drop like your small cards without something it can kill, right?
Right,
So you
right,
can
right.
have it contribute damage at most, and that's the most you can play around it. But now he's just gonna take it. So
But
unless
it
you're
doesn't
playing,
have initiative on that turn. Can you imagine that?
oh wow,
Crazy.
but like so there's not really a good reason to play around Potion of Madness anymore past turn 6.
Yeah.
Because once you get a read for one, you kind of get the read for both. So it's like it actually simplifies things, which I kind of like, even though this is a grossly overpowered card.
Yeah.
One more thing though is that all things 2 attack or less, it's going to be harder to see because remember, no one's going to take 2/3
Yes.
anymore.
Definitely.
So like the power of Potion of Madness and Cabal Shadow Priest are actually going down.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be tougher to see. Like, you're still going to be able to hit with them, right?
Yeah.
It's not they're not going extinct anytime soon, and you're going to have lots of. And because we're not seeing like the vanilla cards anymore, right? You're gonna see weirder cards.
Yeah.
So you're gonna like you said we're gonna see more uh, like polarizing stat distribution cards, right? So you will see some like 2/5s and maybe even 2/6s, and you can take those with Cabal Shadow Priest instead of the 2/3s that we typically think of.
Yep.
So increase offering rate to Dragonfire Potion.
Mm-hmm.
It's an epic, and it has the offering bonus, right?
Oh, now talk about the cool one.
All right, Forbidden Shaping. That is a card. Priests will now be shaping things a lot more often now.
This is gonna be
How
fun.
do you feel about that?
This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's
I
gonna
like
be
it.
fun.
I love this card. It's a good card. It's a priesty kind of card. I like it.
I do remember you rated it like 100 and whatever.
Hey,
bazillion.
almost 150, man. You wouldn't let me do it.
Yeah, because
But that was under the old scale.
you were wrong.
That was under the old scale. Fine. Okay.
Sure.
Forbidden Shaping is good card. Good whatever. The
Right.
thing you want to know about the priest is it's a weird fit for this meta because
Yeah.
as the priest, if your opponent can keep removing the stuff off your board whenever you let it create it out of hand, then it will take you more times to create like a weird situation for your opponent before you get to stay on the board, before your hero power actually becomes a thing. So you also don't get to curve out on 2, so you're one of these classes, like the shaman, like the paladin and the warrior, that has to play more reactively. And you do have some tools to do it, but it's going to feel very bad playing the priest. Like, you're
It's
going to have to be
definitely gonna
very
feel bad.
opportunistic while playing the priest.
So one of the problems with the priest is like, yeah, it's okay. So first of all, it's hurt by the fact that it's missing all these great class cards, but it's being hurt just by the changes that affect everyone, right? It's like when you are decreasing the number of 2s, and when you're saying you're not curving out, it really affects priest that needs the board, and it hurts like a lot of the premium cards so much because they buff, and if you're not getting 2s, Cabal Talon Priest is not hitting,
Yeah.
right? And on player 2, especially if you're a priest, how are you going to coin 2 into 2? That's going to be so rare now, right?
Yep.
But that used to be one of your win conditions as player 2, which is coin 2 into another 2. And it's a really high percent chance that the second 2 will survive, right?
Yep.
Unless they have like double removal or they played a 2/1 on turn 1 and you can deal with it. So that really diminishes the power of Cabal Talon Priest. And then without that snowball, like it's really hard for you to get on the board now. And yes, you have all of these like cool big cards, but priests were always one of those classes that had such powerful cards, but because of the situation, because of awkwardness, they never made it as a top class until like this expansion in which they had flexible, smaller cards to use, which were still situational, but they were just so freakishly flexible and powerful that they sort of climbed the class ranks.
Yep. All right. So Rip Priest. They're not going to be awful, but they're not going to be good either. They're
Sorry,
going to fall
Priest.
off a bit.
Yeah.
And now we get to the sadness.
Well, wait, we didn't. Well, we still haven't talked about Paladin or Warrior, right?
That's what I call the sadness.
Oh, well, I thought Priest was already starting with the sadness.
Okay. Well, Priest is like a little sad. By Warrior,
Okay.
you're going to get into like deep depression. So let's go into like Paladin right now.
The Paladin. All right, guys. So
Gone. But okay.
Yeah, I know.
Go.
We talk about specific cards, let's just repeat that. Like, if you are not hitting your 2-drops, and if you're not capable of snowballing, that was one of the ways that Paladin won as well, right? Putting stuff out on the board, Seal of Champs, Blessing of Kings, Silver Moon Portal, one of those ways. They've definitely gotten a new way to win in Smuggler's Run and Grime Street Outfitter, but
it will now be the only way to win.
It will now be the only way to win. Let's see what
Blizzard.
It's gone.
It's like, you still wanted to play a Paladin like it was a Paladin? No.
Nope. Now you play
them
Solitaire.
like goons. All right. So first card leaving, the foundation of the old Paladin style of rolling on the board. Shielded Minibot.
Shielded Minibot. Goodbye.
Thank you. No one liked this card. It was overpowered.
Just like the most OP 2-drop.
Yes. It's good that it's leaving, but I want to point out to the fact that the Paladins have no other 2-drops. At all.
Yes.
Period. Argent Lance is as close as you get to a 2-drop, but it's not on the board. And you know what happens when there's no 2-drop on the board? You can't coin it out and then play an Argent Protector on it. Which I understand you couldn't do with the Shielded Minibot either. But you're also not going to be able to do it because you're not going to have a lot of 2-drops. So the chances of having an Argent Protector and one of your like 2 or 3 3/2s is so freaking low.
You could always just coin the Shielded Minibot and then afterwards, like, whatever they...
Right, you bump it and do it again.
Yeah, just do it again, right?
But okay.
Anyway.
So it's like basically playing 2 Shielded Minibots back to back.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so you've kind of broken that kind of combo as well, and you've really just set the Paladin back. So it is now a class that needs the board to buff to do stuff, and it cannot get the board by being on the board when playing against Warlock, Mage. It can't actually get the board against Rogue, because Rogue's hero power is still slow to act. So Warlock, Mage, and Hunter.
Yeah.
That's still a lot of classes that it cannot get the board on, and the rest it no longer has any advantage to get on the board at. So that's very bad for being on the board. Next thing it loses,
Muster for Battle.
I don't
Muster
think we need
for
to say
instant
anything
win.
about it. It's good that it's gone.
It's gone, and it's a shame, right? Like, it's gone right before these like Muster would have been buffed. You would have
gotten a shame. That's called thank you, Blizzard.
Okay, that's true. But
That's
for
called,
those of
this
you
is not
dirty
going
Paladin
to be
players that love playing Muster and making other people suffer, maybe you're sad about the fact that had Muster not have gone out, you would have gotten more Musters per draft.
Okay.
Significantly.
True. Yeah. But Dark Iron Skulker, right? Like, do you really want Muster to be the Dark Iron Skulker?
Who knows, right? Who knows?
Look, I mean, we're telling you guys this right now. It's going to be a bad meta. This is going to be a bad meta that's coming up. And don't play Paladin. It'll be kind of a pointless class to play.
Yeah.
Coghammer is leaving. You never really had it too often, but when you did, you won every game.
You won, yeah.
And it's good that it's leaving. It's 102. It's the only card that's over 100 rated on the tier list because it's stupid.
Coghammer is like at least a 3-for-1.
Yeah. For 3
That's
mana.
how stupid this card
Or 3
was.
mana. Because you know what else is the 3-for-1? Kraken. But that's 9 mana.
Yeah, basically. And you have Avenge leaving as well,
which is huge. It's huge that Avenge is leaving because it affects all the other secrets too, and it was like one of your 2 secrets that you actually played along with Noble Sack, right?
Right. So now it's because Avenge should be your number 1 assumption when they play secret.
Well, no, it should be Noble Sack because you have to attack before you can kill something.
Well, no,
generally.
if they just play a secret on turn one, I'm
Oh,
assuming more like it's a
really?
high
I
percentage
assume
chance
Noble
that it's
Sack,
Avenge.
actually. I don't know.
No, 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 no.
Okay.
Like people draft Avenge more than they draft Noble Sack. That's and they'll play both on turn. Well, actually, they'll always play Avenge. They might not always play Noble Sack.
Yep.
So I usually assume that it's Avenge. But
All right.
yes,
But
so
yeah, it's going to change the secrets meta.
yeah. Oh, significantly. Because Paladin secrets always sucked, and now whenever they play a secret,
What was
it's
the GVG secret for Hunter and Mage? Were they like so bad? Or the Hunter one probably was already removed, I'm guessing. um, but were they so bad that we don't care about them? Because I did this outline and I didn't like quite notice.
yeah. I don't exactly. I think for Mage it was like either duplicate or FG. Or
Oh, well, okay, but that's gonna matter.
yeah. No, it'll definitely matter.
Why don't we actually why don't you look it up right now
change.
and I'll talk about the cards that Paladins are getting buffed at.
Sure.
Okay, so Paladins are having a lot of their cards removed, but they were like rares and whatever. And the Avenge is good, but it's not like amazing. Shield and Minibot was the only amazing card. The problem is that the whole meta's turning against it, right? Like the Paladins have no real hard removal, and that's not that great for the Paladin. It has no great board clear, and Consecration is going to be less good with less 2-drops. So a lot of things are turning against the Paladin, in addition to the fact that it can't get rolling anywhere as easily. It does have some saving graces, which will, like some people say Paladin is going to be bottom. Paladin is not going to be bottom. It's just going to have the biggest drop. It's going to be near the bottom, like kind of where like Druid or Hunter is right now, where like they're just not good, but you can play them and you can get 12 wins, and it's not like the end of the world. And that's because Outdoor Peacekeeper is getting a raise. It's getting upped, and that's very important because that's your like soft removal. Grime Street Protector is getting raised, and that's very important because that's your MSG win condition. If you ever do have the board and you play a Grime Street Protector, you win the game. So you still are trying to get the board, but you're trying to get the board now through Grime Street Protectors and whatever. Grime Street Outfitters. Grime Street Outfitters. Grime Street Outfitters? Yeah. And the other thing that's really good is now you can play Grime Street Outfitters without falling behind on the board half the time. Whereas you couldn't before. So you get like a free Grime Street Outfitter play now, whereas you wouldn't before. So there are like the solitaire strategy for Paladin with hand buffs has been strengthened, not weakened.
Right.
But the normal on the board curving strategy is just not a thing anymore.
No. You're not going to hit the Minibot into muster into Blessing of Kings.
Yeah. And another card that's getting an offering rate increase is Rallying Blade. And that's going to be important because remember, 3 mana, 3 damage weapons are really good when your opponents all play 4/3s. And finally, Grime Street Enforcers are going to get an offering bonus, and that's going to be good as well because you're going to have more cards in your hand because you're not going to play a card on 2, so you just have one more card in your hand. And again, the more cards you have in your hand, the better for Paladin hand buffs. So
yeah,
Paladins, like I know people think Paladins are going to like some people think Paladins are going to drop to the bottom. It will not be anywhere close to the bottom. The bottom is a special place reserved for a special class. But the Paladins are going to be like where the Priest is. Like, it's
still
not
bad.
good. It's still bad.
Still bad.
But the solitaire playstyle is going to get so much of a buff. And the thing with Paladins is it's more that it's going to be more boring because you can't build your deck the way you want to. You have to build hand buffs.
Right.
But when you build hand buffs, the hand buff route got better. It just flat out got better. It's better with the meta. It's better with all the other stuff. You could think about this as like a ramp style, right? Like it's a thing. And the Paladins are going to be fine. And the cards that were the cards that were removed, Avenge aside, were cards that really needed to be removed. They were bad cards. Yeah. So this was happening sooner or later. And all in all, this meta is going to be okay to the Paladin, given the hand buff situation. But just remember, draft all hand buffs. That's where it's going to be.
That's your only way to win.
Mm-hmm. That is literally your only way to win as the Paladin. And it's also a halfway decent way to win. So there's that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've seen that it works. Because more Paladins these days are the hand buff variety, right? Mm-hmm. Than the old school style.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Okay, so what are the secrets?
Oh, okay. So, in the upcoming meta, in what we are going to be missing is just Avenge from Paladin. We talked about that, and Duplicate from Mage, and
that's pretty big.
Yep, and that's it.
Oh,
For
there
now.
was no Hunter Secret?
No,
Oh
no,
no, there's
not
a
yet.
Nax Hunter Secret, right?
No.
Really? They just made two secrets and missed one for Hunter?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
They did.
interesting.
Hunters in Nax got Web Spinner.
No. Okay, never mind.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to the final class, also known as not a class in the arena anymore. It was barely a class in MSG, and it's just not going to be in the arena again. We're right back to where TGT was before hashtag Arena Warriors Matters even began. And, I'm not going to preemptively freak out about this because I know that it is only temporary and we're getting a new meta in a month. And Blizzard will fix everything with the Warrior in that 1 to 2 month period. And I have a lot of faith in Blizzard for it because you can't possibly screw over the Warrior this hard after you only started caring about the arena because Warrior got out of hand. Like, all of these arena changes that are coming stem from the fact that Warrior got too out of hand and everybody gathered together and was like, this is stupid, Blizzard, do something.
Yeah.
So to let the Warrior fall back into this situation, like, Blizzard can't even be that blind or out of touch with stuff. They can't.
I'm expecting good things in the next expansion.
Yeah,
Basically.
and
Yeah.
I'm expecting the meta to just change to favor the Warriors, right?
Sure.
Like, there's
Definitely.
got to be something happening, and also Warriors will naturally get better because a lot of their bad cards happened in TGT and
Right.
BRM.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah.
LOE they got really good cards, but they had 2 expansions of bad cards before the good card expansion. So
Right.
it will also just naturally recover a bit. So I'm not like worried about Warrior for the future really. Like this isn't like let's restart hashtag Arena Warriors Matters thing. But this is in all seriousness, Warrior does not exist in this next like stub meta 1 or 2 months. Like just don't
Right.
play it. It's just not worth anyone's time. Because Death's Bite is leaving, and that's a good card. Crush could have been a savior. It's epic. Like Death's Flight, we all know, right? It's a good card. It is literally the third highest rated card after Fool's Bane and Fiery War Axe for the Warrior. Crush is leaving. Crush is an epic card. You barely saw it, but it would have been really good for the Warrior to have it because it needs hard removals. So that's bad. But more importantly, it barely gets anything that's getting an offering bonus to it. And this is like it gets Frothing Berserker, which is great, but Frothing Berserker is better when you actually have a 2-drop. Because without a 2-drop, it's not going to get buffed on the turn it comes out, and it's just a 2/4. So it's not even a 3-drop. Like, it loses a lot of its value from the fact that it's not going to have a 2-drop. King's Defender is great. It's amazing. Fine. That's going to get buffed, and this is great because it's 3 attack, 3 for 3 mana, right? To kill the 4/3s. And then Gorehow is the big gain, right? So you're losing, what do you call it? You're losing Death's Bite, but you're gaining Gorehow. But keep in mind, Gorehow is still only going to be seen like once every like 4 or like 3 drafts or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, Gorehow is not going to be seen all that often. Epic cards are still not going to be seen all that often. They're going to be seen way more than they used to be, which is almost never, but they're not going to be seen that often, whereas Death's Bite used to happen once every other draft. So you're losing something that's appearing way more often than what you're gaining.
Yeah.
But I would start playing around Gorehound now too. Especially if you have a higher win rate, like you're facing as a higher win rate warrior.
Yeah. Like we said, this actually does introduce epics into the card pool. So, which is great because epics, you basically had these cards which are floating around, but were not actually real cards. This makes these real cards. So it feels good, right? Like we have almost an infusion of cards that we just know about inherently. But yeah, Warrior, it's going to be in a really tough spot. And yeah, you have these weapons, and yeah, you might be able to draft a Gorehow, but how many hits can you take before you just, and by turn 7, you're probably already in a pretty bad spot because of the fact that you couldn't curve out and your hero power does nothing.
I will say this. Warriors are one of the classes that can curve out, sort of. The problem is, Cruel Taskmaster used to be sort of a curve card. It's not anymore. You're not going to Cruel Task anything because people aren't going to have 2-drops except 3/2s. So that's kind of out as a 2-drop. And it's a little too valuable to like just play empty on the board. You can't. Like, so that's a kind of a problem. Fiery War Axe, used to be a great 2-drop because it would guarantee you to kill the opponent's 2-drop and probably their 3-drop too. Now, if your opponent has a 2-drop, it'll kill it. It's still really, really good against the 3-drop meta, against the 4-3 meta, right?
Yeah, of course.
But then it's a little bit like, so yes, it is a curve card in that sense. So we do have a curve card there that's good. Sparring Partner is a 3-2 that's a curve card, and you're going to see that much more often now, which is good. And Alexstrasza's Champion does exist, although it is a 2-3. And for the Warrior, you used to need to curve out. Like, why did the Warrior need to curve out? It's different than other people. You're not really rushing opponents down so much as if you didn't curve out, you wouldn't have enough damage to deal to the next thing to be able to make sure you don't take too much face damage.
Right.
That's still going to be kind of a thing, but the fact that if your opponent doesn't curve out, you as the Warrior don't really need to proactively curve out as much. You're not a hunter, you know?
Yeah,
You're kind of defensively curving out. And so when you're trying to defensively curve out, Alexstrasza's Champion is not that great. But it does mean that it's not like as big of a deal as it is for something like a Paladin or a Priest. So Warrior's like half curve out, but doesn't really need to curve out. The real bigger problem is that it loses so much value. And it's already the worst class. And the meta's not favorable to it because it has no hard removal. So it's going to keep losing value. And if the game really does go on for a while, it still has the worst hero power. Like, it's in a bad spot.
Yep.
Okay. So we have finally reached the end of all of this. We are 3 hours into this podcast. We're going to wrap it up now. Let's go with class rankings. What do you predict the new class rankings will be?
Yeah, man. I think in the beginning, because people are still trying to figure stuff out, right? And when people are trying to figure stuff out, they're going to try to draft twos and sort of fail, and they're not going to get as much value, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So in a value-oriented meta, like the classes that are going to be the strongest, especially in the first week, are the ones in which not too much has changed from the way that they have been playing, right?
Well, okay, no, don't talk about win rates. Talk about what you need to beat the meta.
Oh, what you need to beat them.
Yeah, that's what classes are strong. It's how a good player would play it, not how the average player would play it.
Well, yeah, I'm just laying out like sort of how it's going to happen.
Yes,
right? Like,
yes.
What is
in the
happening?
beginning, everyone's going to misplay because the meta is going to be so huge, and we'll misplay too, but we'll hopefully misplay less.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows, man? If we keep on doing 3-hour podcasts, we'll misplay a ton. But so I think in the beginning, what you got to do is just recognize, like what we said about these stat distributions, right? So remember that 3 2s are just really good. 2 3s, they're just going to get eaten up. You're going to draft a lot of 4 3s. 3 5s are just going to be better than they were before. But also, you can like draft a lot of value, right? Like you can get a lot of the value stuff, and the game is going to be a little bit slower. And you can just feast on a lot of these players that try to get a little, try to get these 1s and 2s to work out, but don't exactly get there. And the rest of their deck, even if they're thinking more aggressively oriented, they probably can't build that cohesive of an aggressive deck.
Yeah. It's true. Like, go back. I would go back after this because the last part is really because people are interested in it, like which classes are doing well and which classes aren't. But the most important part, practically speaking, is that middle hour where we talk about how the meta's going. Like, that's what you will use to win more games. This last part is just kind of like us analyzing the classes, and we love doing it because we like ranking things. We like judging things. But the practical part's in the middle. The game development, the game dev like hat stuff is in the first hour, and this last hour was just us talking about class rankings. In terms of the class rankings, I would say it should be Rogue on the top with Mage and Warlock. I would put the Rogue on the very top, but like, who knows, right? Like, those are the 3, and I think they have a clear advantage in this meta because they already had an advantage, and they just maximize their existing advantage. The very, very bottom is Warrior, no doubt, not even close. And then there will be this middle zone with like Priest, Paladin, and Druid. That's all kind of like hanging out there, and who knows what'll be good or not. And then Hunter and Shaman kind of rise above that. Hunter, because the playstyle can still work and it can screw your opponents over. and Shaman because it just got so much value. So that's my prediction for how the meta is going to turn out in terms of the class rankings. When it comes to how to play, it's that middle zone. It's what Merps was talking about. It's all that stuff. And if you listen to that, I think you'll do very well in this transition meta. Don't focus too much on the 2-drops. Don't sweat it. Get the 3/5s. Get the ways to prevent against it. Don't be seduced by the 4/3s. You're going to have enough 3-drops. Try to take not 4/3s and prioritize those the highest. Because you'll get your 4/3s. 4/3s will be everywhere. You will just be forced to take it because your alternatives are really crappy cards. And then at the end, I would say, don't worry too much. Like, for the first 2 weeks, everyone's going to be fine because we're all just trying to figure out this meta, and it's going to be interesting. And then after 2 weeks and the novelty wears off, I think there's going to be this big backlash against the arena. The one that we've been talking about from the very beginning, which is that this is a horrible way to do arena. And just don't worry too much about it, because I think there's a very low chance Blizzard keeps all of their changes. To the extent that these changes are coming, I think a lot of them will be gone by the time the next expansion releases. So at least how I'm viewing this middle period between now and when the next expansion... By the way, they're going to announce the expansion tomorrow. Like, they pretty much announced that they're going to announce the expansion tomorrow. So I think this expansion is going to come out earlier in April rather than later. But anyway, the bigger point I'm trying to make is that this is just the transition period. Blizzard's going to make some mistakes. And I think they are making some mistakes, but they're trying. So they get the participation award, they get the effort award, and hopefully they're responsive enough. And by the time the next expansion comes out and there's a meta we all actually care about, a lot of the kinks will be worked out. And by the time the next expansion comes out, all of the like really bad stuff will be gone, and they would have figured out what makes sense and what is good to do and what actually like will not frustrate the players and what is frustrating the players rather than just like flame strikes and abyssal enforcers. So I would keep an open mind about this whole thing, right? Like, we're very tough on Blizzard because we think they're making a horrible mistake with half their changes. Yep. And we think we know the arena well enough to say that. But we like that they're doing something, and that cannot be stated often enough. Because it's very easy to be negative because we go into detail when we're being negative to back ourselves up, whereas we like it kind of doesn't need all that much explanation. Like the rarity change, we're highly in support of, but like we didn't talk too much about it because, I don't know, like we like it. It seems good. No one's arguing against it.
Right. So I do think this is an important thing to end on as well. You know, we've just spent 3 hours sort of, you know, dissecting what we don't like about this stuff. But overall, like, you know, it seems like, you know, you spend 3 hours criticizing and then 1 hour just throwing this out there. But we talked at the beginning of the year and said the worst thing that they could do is just
nothing.
The status quo.
Yeah.
Right. And this is far from the status quo. So, and no matter what change they made, like almost changed it, like there was not, we were always going to have some criticism. Yeah. Right.
This is hard. They're changing the whole meta. They're changing all the rules. This is not like, oh, Warriors are doing bad, let's give them good cards. That's easy. That's hard to screw up. And we said so at the time. We're like, you can't screw this up, Blizzard. Just give Warriors better cards. Like, overpower cards even. But for something like this, they're getting their baby legs. Sorry, sea legs? Baby walking? I don't know the expression. They're learning. They're learning. It's a learning process for them on how to do their jobs when it comes to this arena balance stuff. And that's fine. And when everything becomes crappy, if you're an arena vet, because I don't know if it's actually going to be all that crappy when it comes to like the casual players. It could be like totally okay. But like, or I know arena vets will get really frustrated with the incoming meta after like 2 weeks. Because it'll be novel, it'll be new, it'll be fun, and then you'll realize that your skill does not matter as much as it should. So, hopefully, before you get too frustrated, Blizzard will fix it. But I do think that we should also be very vocal about letting Blizzard know what's not working for experienced players. Because there's going to be a lot of people being very loud who are also very experienced, but not in the arena. And they outnumber us 9-1, 10-1. I don't know what the exact ratios are, but they hugely outnumber people who primarily play the arena and actually know what's going on in the arena. And so the worst thing that can happen is if their opinions govern and we get drowned out. Instead, we want to educate them and make them understand the arena so that we can all be on the same side and enjoy the same product. And they will. And they will just naturally eventually come to the similar-ish views as arena vets. But we want to make that process as fast as possible so that Blizzard doesn't keep this awful meta that's coming in for like half a year or 2 years. Because if this is what arena is going to become and it's going to stay that way, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay an arena player. Like, this incoming meta is going to be that bad. And just be mentally prepared, have fun with it, explore, and make Blizzard change it.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess we'll end on that note. Thank you again to all our patrons. I know we didn't do a question from the GOAT because this is a really long podcast already.
Yeah.
But
this should be our main focus. We talked about it. Hopefully, you guys learned something. And
okay, but our patrons, I want to thank at patreon.com/grinninggoat. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. And we'll see you next week when we're actually in this meta and we have some like initial observations. And again, Victor is coming 2 weeks from now to talk more about the meta and the leaderboard.
Yes.
So,
apologies to Victor.
Blizzard did this to us.
Yeah. I don't think we want to make sure we give Victor enough time. And this week,
this is not the week.
Definitely, in short supply. So thank you guys so much. Good luck in the new arena. We'll see you next week.
This is Adwicta.
This is Merps. Bye, guys.